चलो खबरदार हज़रात, वेलकम बैक टू अनदर एपिसोड ऑफ थॉट बिहाइंड थिंग्स। आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं दो बहुत ही खास मेहमान जिनको बुलाने का मकसद ये था कि वी हैड अ कॉन्वर्सेशन विद अनदर मेंबर ऑफ देयर टीम नॉट टू लॉन्ग अगो, और उस टाइम के ऊपर पाकिस्तान में क्विक कॉमर्स के ऊपर बड़ी बात हो रही थी और उसके अप्स एंड डाउन्स, क्या सीन है क्या नहीं है। उन्होंने रेकमेंड किया था कि व्हाई डोंट यू टॉक टू द पर्सन रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दैट वर्टिकल इन आवर कंपनी, एंड आई थॉट दैट बी एब्सोल्युटली अमेजिंग। इसी के साथ साथ आजकल जो हालात हैं इकॉनमी के आपके सामने हैं, पूरी दुनिया में एक इन्फ्लेशन वगैरह का प्रॉब्लम तो चल ही रहा है, बट इसी के साथ साथ पाकिस्तान में ख़ासकर ये प्रॉब्लम बहुत ज़्यादा बुरी तरीके से हमारे सामने है। एंड सो आई थॉट व्हाई डोंट वी टॉक टू द फाइनेंस गाय फ्रॉम देयर कंपनी एज वेल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि स्टार्टअप्स particularly their company, how are they faring through that environment, and आने वाले वक्त की जो अनसर्टनिटी है उसके थ्रू ये किस तरह से अपने आप को प्लान कर रहे हैं प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए। आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं सैयद माज हाशमी, हु इज़ द डायरेक्टर फाइनेंस एट foodpanda, and इबाद और रहमान अहमद, who is the director and business unit head for quick commerce and new verticals. Guys, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you. वालेकुम जी।
इबाद, मैं कॉन्वर्सेशन आपके साथ स्टार्ट करूँगा जस्ट ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड वेयर वर यू बोर्न एंड अर्ली लाइफ आपने कहाँ गुजारी। अगर आपने पैसिव इनकम के बारे में परेशान है, खासकर आजकल की इकोनॉमी में जहां पर ऑलरेडी कैश कंटिन्यूअसली बर्न हो रहा है और इन्फ्लेशन हमें मार रही है, तो आई एम प्राउड टू अनाउंस दैट दिस वीडियो इज इन पार्टनरशिप विद सरमाया फाइनेंशियल्स। दे आर ऑफरिंग 2 वेरी कूल ट्रेनिंग्स, कैपिटल मार्केट फंडामेंटल्स, जिसमें आप स्टॉक्स और म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करना सीखेंगे और अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे कि आखिर एक कंपनी के अंदर क्या ऐसे फंडामेंटल्स होते हैं जिनको आपने देखना होता है टू फिगर आउट कि वो एक अच्छी कंपनी है टू इन्वेस्ट इन। और दूसरी ट्रेनिंग है टेक्निकल एनालिसिस मास्टर क्लास, जिसमें आप सीखेंगे कि किस तरीके से हम डिफरेंट ट्रेडेबल एसेट्स लाइक कमोडिटीज, फॉरेक्स, स्टॉक्स, क्रिप्टो के अंदर थोड़े से पैसे लगाकर बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे बना सकते हैं। पर्सनली ये ट्रेनिंग मैंने भी ली है एंड इट्स एब्सोल्युटली फिनोमिनल। द लिंक टू द ट्रेनिंग्स आर इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन बिलो। चेक देम आउट एंड बिकम फाइनेंशियली हेल्दी। एंड नाउ बैक टू द पॉडकास्ट।
Born and bred Karachiite, so I think the first 27 years of my life fully in Karachi. Early education सारी मेरी वहीं की थी, so I did my schooling from a relatively lesser known school, New Day Secondary School, वहाँ से मैंने matriculation किया. Then I proceeded for my intermediate from Khan Higher Secondary School, Kareemabad.
Right.
Yeah.
और उसके बाद where did you go for your university?
So I went to GIKI for my electronic engineering.
Was that a random decision? Yeah, did you decide on multiple different जगह जहाँ पर हो गया चलो देख लेते हैं?
So there were 2 factors behind it. एक तो ये था कि my father was an electrical engineer, so electrical electronics there's a bit of a crossover. कुछ ना कुछ करना था. Back at that time it was by far the best engineering institution in Pakistan, with electronics having the highest merit, so it was difficult to get into it. I just wanted to prove something that I could make it, so that's kind of how things played out.
Makes sense. And how was the GIK experience? Because you're a through and through Karachiite, right? और इससे पहले आप had you traveled across Pakistan or outside of Pakistan?
Not really, no. So it was technically speaking, I had very little local or international travel before going to GIK. So it was a big change, and I think एक और reason जो ये बड़ा change था ये था कि I'm an only child.
Right.
Super sheltered and protected, and some of it was out of volition कि यार मैंने कुछ नया experience करना है, and hopefully I will learn a lot of things in terms of becoming an adult through hostel life and that experience. So yeah.
Was that worth it? Because again, 4 years of going from this sort of huge metropolis to really being in the center of jungles, right? और एक cultural shift भी है because कराची के अंदर the people are very different, even though it's very sort of multi-ethnic and उस तरह से वो है, but एक culture of the city is like I see Karachi as a separate country altogether. आप लाहौर जाएं या बाकी जगहों पे जाएं आपको समझ आ रही है अच्छा पाकिस्तान की वेरिएशन है, आप कराची लैंड करते हैं and then everything is different, right? The accents are different, the thought processes are different. तो वहाँ से उठ के आप लम्स जाते, फास्ट जाते, कॉमसर्ट जाते, it's one thing, but GIK, that's something. So what was that like?
Definitely at that stage it was life altering, and the reason is I think I'm better off because of that. I would have been a very different person. उसका जो footprint और impression है मेरी ज़िंदगी पर बहुत ज़्यादा indelible रहा है, और इसलिए क्योंकि I think I would not have been so tolerant of so many different perspectives. अगर मुझे ज़िंदगी में कोई inclusion या inclusiveness समझ में आई है, probably some of those initial roots came from GIK, where you were working, or studying with everyone from across Pakistan. From back then it wasn't even KPK. per se, and क्या कहते हैं कि obviously a lot of people from Punjab, especially Lahore and Islamabad, Pindi. So I think it made me a more tolerant person. It also helped me paint a slightly better picture of Karachiites. and I think I think that hostel life trained me to start looking out for my own. I would not have perhaps known that the life there is not just about academics. It's also about you have to be involved with clubs and societies, because if you don't do that, then you're going to feel quite lonely.
Right.
You will be found on the LAN, the Ethernet, and either gaming or watching movies or whatnot. So I think it was really formative.
Gaming वगैरह करे तो उस time पे आप?
Gaming selectively, I wasn't very good. So I love to see people play Dota.
Right.
Love to see them play Dota. But I used to play Counter-Strike a bit myself. So
Right. And how were you academically?
I was okay. I think I it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't
Top of your
tremendous. No, it wasn't top of my game. Yeah.
Electronics while you were studying it, did you like it?
I liked electronics. I think the way the course was structured at that time, it was done to kind of branch out into multiple areas. So कुछ लोग power और इलेक्ट्रिकल की साइड पे निकल जाते थे. Some people used to go into instrumentation and controls. By and large, a lot of people used it as an entry point into telecom, क्योंकि electronics का मतलब है, back then 2004-2008 telecom boom in Pakistan. How do you make an entry into that space? It was, if you talk about hardcore electronics, वो पाकिस्तान में होती नहीं, क्योंकि आपको पता है कि PCB या जो printed circuit board manufacturing है उसके ऊपर तो हमारे पास इतना expertise नहीं है. The people who got interested in it, they definitely left the country soon after. जो बाकी सारे areas थे वहाँ पे I think I personally did not enjoy power that much, or even telecom for that matter, but I think instrumentation and controls was an area that I really enjoyed.
What does that mean, instrumentation and controls?
So this is about industrial processes getting automatically managed. So let's say you have a plant, और उस plant के अंदर different pipeline है, उन पे valve लगे हुए हैं, तो एक कोई distributor control system या PLC के through उनका timely operation खुलना बंद होना, ताकि वो process उस तरीके से काम कर सके.
और वो एक central unit लगा हुआ है जहाँ पे आपने एक बटन दबाया तो वो उसने बंद कर दिया अपने आप को. So you don't necessarily, even sometimes you need to have a button. There are fail safes in the system, there are alarms, whatnot. But the predominant reason that you'd have something like this is कि आपका एक process है, और उस process को आपने train किया हुआ है कि there is a stable, steady state. And if the variables go up and down, then you train the system to act in a way so as to take consistent feedback. और उस फीडबैक की बेसिस पे अपने इनपुट्स को कंट्रोल करें ताकि वो दोबारा स्टेबलाइज हो जाए. राइट.
और जो बनना था, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर कोई केमिकल प्रोडक्ट है तो उसी तरीके से बने, रादर देन कि कुछ और बन जाए या प्लांट जो है वो उसको शट डाउन करना पड़े या कुछ हो जाए. सो इट इज़ अबाउट ऑटोमेशन, एंड आई थिंक इट्स इंटरेस्टिंग because I think some of the businesses that we have, especially around in oil and gas and in the fertilizer sector, they are fully dependent on instruments and controls.
जो आपके GIK का बैच था उसमें are a lot of people still in Pakistan? I feel like जो GIK has that sort of LUMS effect where a certain niche goes and most of them by the time they're graduating realize कि हम अब over qualify हो गए हैं पाकिस्तानी मार्केट के लिए, and they end up मास्टर शास्टर्स करके यूरोप निकल गए, इधर उधर निकल गए. तो was the trend similar around you as well?
I don't think that at that time, at least back in the day, things were not about leaving the country per se. ये मैं ज़रूर कहूँगा कि what had become interesting was because it's a great institution and it produces some great engineers, but everybody doesn't become a great engineer, and the cost of the degree was so relatively high even back then, and especially now even more so, कि a lot of people transitioned into management careers, especially into supply chain and operations, process engineering, process and operations management. तो वो ज़रा ज़्यादा होने लगा था क्योंकि but I would say कि outflux of the people going and still staying. So I think the bigger problem was them staying true to engineering as a discipline.
If I were to ask you, it's a very interesting point आपने raised किया. Do you think there was a lack of their interest in engineering, or more a lack of really good opportunities in engineering? I feel like Pakistan became such a sort of retail market कि यार फैक्ट्री लगाना तो ख्वारी है when you can just get such stuff cheaper from China. And so it makes sense ना. इतना आपने तो चले सप्लाई चेन में कर लिया, GIK के तो स्मार्ट लोग होते हैं. हमारे इर्द गिर्द जो लोग ग्रेजुएट हुए वो पिछले 5 साल में सारे रियल एस्टेट में कुछ ना कुछ कर रहे हैं इस टाइम पे. तो वो इकोनॉमी का जो रुख होता है समटाइम्स इट सॉर्ट ऑफ अट्रैक्ट्स टैलेंट one way or the other, and somehow while that is happening, like मैं कंप्यूटर साइंस से ग्रेजुएट हूँ, मुझे बहुत सारे लोग आए कहते हैं यार कंप्यूटर साइंस में इंटरेस्ट नहीं हुआ. आई डोंट नेसेसरीली एग्री. आई जस्ट फील लाइक या तो पढ़ाई सही नहीं गई, टेम्परामेंट का मसला इतना नहीं था उन लोगों में जितना ज़्यादा, या तो पढ़ाई नहीं गई थी सही या अपॉर्चुनिटी बनाई नहीं. तो ऑब्वियस सी बात है कि दे एंडेड अप मेकिंग अ लॉट मोर मनी डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ अदर थिंग्स. व्हाट डू यू थिंक वाज द केस इन योर?
I would tend to agree that even back then, if I look at it, देखें, you're talking about a graduate from GIK paying a lot of money. At least at that time, I don't remember कि K Electric आ चुकी थी या KESC थी. So for a person from GIK to go to KESC and WAPDA is a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
तो power, I'm just strictly talking from a electronics lens, obviously. We always felt कि यार मैकेनिकल लोगों के लिए ज़्यादा नौकरियाँ हमेशा अवेलेबल होती थी. But if you talk about people from electronics, etc., application was the problem, not necessarily temperament. You have great temperament, but if there is no application out there in the industry, how will you find a relevant job?
Yeah.
I think on the instrumentation and control side, I think काफ़ी ज़्यादा, you have companies like ICI, Engro, Foji, a lot of places where there is an application of instrumentation and controls.
Right.
But let's talk about, like I said, printed circuit boards, chips, logic design. Who's doing that in Pakistan? So it's lost on you. You can't really apply it. So if you really like it, then you got to go outside. And then once you go outside, do you really come back? If you have gone in soon after your undergraduation, a little unlikely.
Yeah.
Now the last thing that comes is telecom, and obviously it became a super saturated market super fast because yes, it was booming,
but everybody was going into
everybody wanted to be that vast RF engineer who gets in, and then it started becoming really difficult for everyone to make it there.
Yeah.
तो ये है problem कि I personally feel कि temperament का necessarily मसला नहीं था. There was just not enough application, especially from an hardcore electronics lens.
Makes sense. And so आप जब ग्रेजुएट हुए 2008 में है, तो उस टाइम के ऊपर what did you do?
So my first job was with Engro in Derki. Classic continuance of the GIKI bubble, because great colony, great society, great people, really watching out for each other, having each other's backs. So I did that, but I did that for a relatively short stint, around 7 months. And then after that, I transitioned into Shell and I came back to Karachi.
Acha, we're going to get back to that. But I want to come to Maz and get his side of early life and where was he born, and thoda sa mujhe batayega.
So thank you, Muzamil, for having us. So born in Karachi, was here in Karachi till I think class 4. But then I moved to Bangladesh.
Acha. And what year was this?
This was back in 1996.
Right.
So my dad was a textile engineer. Textile at that time was sort of picking up there in Bangladesh. So he moved. Eventually went there, did my schooling, did my O-levels, A-levels from there, and then came back.
Interesting. How long were you there for?
Good 10 years.
Acha. And what was it like? I mean, पाकिस्तान में बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग सी बात है कि we know a lot about India in terms of culture, and there's Bollywood and music, but Bangladesh, which was essentially part of us, we don't know a lot about. And I would assume कि जो ज़ाहिर है हमें थोड़ा बहुत पता है वो कंटेंशियस चीज़ें बताएं. तो दो सवाल हैं प्रॉब्ली. पहले तो ये, हाउ डिड यू फाइंड बांग्लादेश जनरली, ओवरऑल स्पेस कैसी थी, लोग कैसे थे, एंड देन हाउ डिड दोज पीपल फाइंड यू, बिकॉज व्हेन यू इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ एज अ पाकिस्तानी, तो was there resentment, was there के अच्छा से दूर रहना है?
No, so I think the time I did spend there, to this day I really look back to it, and I had a great time. From a country perspective, I think similar to what we are here as well. much more greener. Like, so that obviously is the case there.
वहाँ बारिशें वगैरह बहुत ज़्यादा होती हैं.
बहुत ज़्यादा, and it's like they do, for them floods is something that happens like on.
It's a lifestyle. It's not a calamity.
Yeah, but they are well prepared for it accordingly as well. But I think in general, very peaceful, lush green bells and everything. So it was good. On the second part of the question, that is something that I usually get, and even when sort of I was going there, though I remember I was in like class 4, class 5, right? But back of the mind, it was that, I don't know how would I be sort of welcomed or how would I be taken. I think it was as smooth as a breeze. I mean, the people there, to my surprise, it was more about, oh, you're from Pakistan, ठीक है, तो पाकिस्तान अच्छा, पता है पाकिस्तान के बारे में, अच्छा, you guys have mountains और ये और वो. So it was the, I found, or maybe I was lucky that generally the people I met or the friends that I have made, it was a very welcoming experience for me there.
और language का क्या सीन था? Was there a language barrier? Did you communicate with them in like Urdu or?
So the good thing is, with Bollywood and everything, I think all the Bengalis that I came across knew Hindi or Urdu, right? So that was never a problem. And then obviously when you go to a country at such a young age and when you do your schooling, so you end up learning the language as well. So right. Like 2-3 years down the line, I was as fluent in Bangla as a Bengali.
मतलब आप बाहर कहीं फिर रहे हो, कोई बता नहीं सकता कि ये पाकिस्तानी है या बंगाली है.
Correct. And then I think the good thing is, I think since like I did my O-levels and A-levels, so it was like English medium school, so I think English was there as well. So even from a language barrier perspective, that was not an issue.
वहाँ पे वैसे पाकिस्तानी थे और जो आए हुए थे जनरली
काफ़ी.
कितने मतलब पाकिस्तानी हैं वहाँ पर जो कि काम शाम कर रहे होते हैं?
काफ़ी हैं. आई थिंक ये भी एक परसेप्शन है कि शायद ना हो, बट आई थिंक देयर इज़ अ लॉट ऑफ पाकिस्तानीज दैट आर सिचुएटेड देयर, especially in this textile engineering background, because we, as you know, Ibad is one of them. We have good engineers here in Pakistan, right? So,
right.
So generally, like in the textile field, more or less every textile companies have Pakistanis operating for them from Bangladesh.
और आप ढाका में थे वहाँ पर?
मैं ढाका में था जी. So most of the time I was in Dhaka, but I was fortunate enough to travel across the whole Bangladesh and explore the beauty of it accordingly.
उनका क्या है मेजर? I think ढाका है, चिटागोंग है.
So the capital, so very centralized. Dhaka being the capital, being sort of that is where everyone come in.
Is that a port city also, or
no,
is not?
The port city is Chittagong.
Right.
That's their port city. But it's Dhaka is equivalent to Karachi, right?
Right.
It's a metropolis. It's the life there is very fast, very different. But I think I'll give you just for perception sake, Pakistan has a population of 220 million people.
Right.
Bangladesh has a population of 180 million people.
Yeah, but with half the landmass, yeah.
Even less than that. So you can imagine the sort of crowd density, or the density of people that was there.
But in terms of, security and cleanliness and infrastructure, because I feel like जो खैर आपके time पे was different also, उन्होंने पिछले 10 साल में बहुत ज़्यादा grow किया. But what was that like?
So I think
similar to
Karachi. I mean, I can maybe relate more to Islamabad per se, but in general, I think infrastructure at the time when I was there, I think to what they are today, I think they have developed a lot on the infrastructure space. But back at that time, it was something similar to what maybe our cities are like.
Yeah, and security and cleanliness. मुझे बड़े लोग कहते हैं culturally ना उनके बड़ी मज़े की चीज़ें हैं. इस तरह वहाँ पर women are very well integrated into their workforce.
Yes.
And so inherently, because you see them a lot outside, so there is a certain level of security जो कि society के अंदर embedded है ख़वातीन की. फिर इसी तरीके से I remember this one time an Indonesian couch surfer couple were visiting Pakistan, तो मैंने वो couch surfing पर डाल दिया. मैंने कहा why don't you come over? And so she asked me, she messaged me that I've just come to Centaurus, pick me up. So I went to pick her up. And गाड़ी में हम आ रहे थे तो she looked like कि ना बड़ी परेशान लग रही थी, हस्बैंड भी थे उनके साथ. तो मैंने कहा क्या हुआ? कहते आई जस्ट कम टू इस्लामाबाद टुडे एंड आई एम जस्ट शुक बिकॉज रास्ते में जो है हमें वॉशरूम रुकना पड़ा 2 एक जगहों पर और मैं आपकी रोडें देख रही हूँ एंड इट्स आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड हाउ यू कॉल योर सेल्फ अ मुस्लिम कंट्री. मैंने कहा सफाई और मुस्लिम कंट्री ये क्या बात कर रही है ना. उन्होंने कहा जी हमें तो पहली चीज़ ये पढ़ाई जाती है कि सफाई निस्फ़ ईमान है, हमारा तो आधा ईमान ही सारा वो है और वो बड़ा हम तो उसको उसमें उड़ाते हैं. And she was like, you know, like for me for us Indonesians being a Muslim, it means you have to be clean with your mind and clean with your society and clean with your neighborhood. Oh, what an interesting perspective tha. We never thought about that in Pakistan. So in that context, security and overall.
So I think on the security side of it and the cleanliness, I'll say yes, it was better. Like Karachi se compare karun to yes, better. Islamabad se compare karun to at par. I'll keep it at par. On the workforce question that you asked, I think that's true. When I recall as well, they have these garment factories and so women is an integral part of their workforce, and it's like both husband wife sort of they work together and sort of raise a family together. So I remember even at that time, I'm talking about 90s, like उस वक्त भी अच्छी खासी मतलब wherever you go to garment or you चाय के बागान होते हैं वहाँ पे आप वहाँ चले जाएं, कहीं भी चले जाएं, women is an integral part of the workforce.
And so you came back in 2006?
Yes, 2006.
And what did you do after that?
So after that, so basically I have been an hardcore accountant since my O levels. So I took accounting, economics, business studies there, then in A levels. So after coming here, I had 2 options, either CA or ACCA. I opted for ACCA and then completed it here.
Why did you choose ACCA instead of CA?
I think back then, which I think now has sort of, they have evolved as well. CA had its own sort of limitation per se, and right. from a perspective that so module system होता था. आपने अगर 3 पेपर दिए और अगर 1 पेपर रुक गया आपका तो आपका पूरा मॉड्यूल लैप्स होता था, राइट. फिर उसके बाद CA में ये होता था कि आपको आफ्टर doing 4 modules, you need to spend 3.5 years in an audit firm.
So articleship of sorts.
Articleship, and the pay of the stipend per se.
वो तो मजाक ही करते हैं आपके साथ.
That was quite bad. So I am the only son, so I had to sort of support the family. So it was more like getting a certification or getting a degree and then moving quickly towards into job. So मैंने किया भी यही. Before I even completed my ACCA, I joined a company. My first role was an accountant. So it was a small company. They were basically providing industrial stabilizers and inverters. वहाँ पे so 1.5 years their first exposure of how a corporate life is and so forth.
मुझे एक बात बताएं, जो आप ACCA में पढ़ते हैं एक एकेडमिक वर्जन ऑफ अकाउंटिंग एंड फाइनेंस, अकाउंटिंग मोस्टली, एंड देन जो एक्चुअल ये आई एम श्योर कोई सेट कंपनी होगी फैमिली ओन टाइप, जो एक्चुअल पाकिस्तान में अकाउंटिंग हो रही है उसमें और एकेडमिक में कितना डिफरेंस है?
सो आई थिंक फ्रॉम एन हार्डकोर अकाउंटिंग पर्सपेक्टिव आई वुड से लाइक जैसे जो पहली कंपनी थी ऑब्वियसली इट वाज more of a family owned, so वहाँ पे उतना नहीं था. But then the other companies that I moved into, वहाँ पे obviously it was a different ball game. From a hardcore accounting perspective, I would say yes, accounting is followed. But then that is only till maybe your first 5-6 years where you're sort of preparing accounts and doing reporting and so forth. उसके बाद the ball game completely changes because then you're basically an integral part of running the company, right? You're running the finances, running the company per se. I think वहाँ पे फिर आपको एक disconnect नज़र आता है कि so in theory and in practical things are very different.
जो practical है उसमें business administration on some level आ जाती है.
बिल्कुल आ जाती है, business administration आ जाती है. फिर उसके बाद I mean sort of I would say thinking out of the box एक element आ जाता है, facilitation का एक बहुत बड़ा element आ जाता है. So it's different from what. So obviously the base is the ACCA or be any other qualification. It sort of provides you the base, but I think वो एक बहुत ही different ball game होता है when you go into the industry and start working.
Makes sense. And you've been in the industry for well over a decade now, and you've seen how things have evolved in terms of tools and services available for on the tech side of things, right? अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं कि आजकल के टाइम पे how important, I know how important accountants are. I think we take accounting for granted. वो बड़ी कंपनी तो कर लेती है, बट पाकिस्तान में आई फील लाइक जो SME सेक्टर स्केल नहीं कर पाता, उसके एक मेजर रीज़न ये है कि जो कोर फाइनेंस या अकाउंटिंग का बंदा है ना, वो कभी होता ही नहीं. तो हर बंदा अपने मर्जी से कर रहा होता है कि यार बस ठीक है, चलो इतने कमा लिए तो इतने उड़ा देते हैं, क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है. एंड देन रिसेंटली आई केम अक्रॉस दिस वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग ऐप कॉल्ड मेट्रिक, जो कि इसको अब डिजिटाइज भी कर रहे हैं, और वो सॉर्ट ऑफ देयर लाइक जस्ट रसीद है, तस्वीर के इंचो डाल दो, ऐप विल डू द रेस्ट. एंड नाउ विद sort of AI and machine learning and image recognition, theoretically a lot of these things can be automated, right? है तो एक certain application है, आपने एक define कर दिया कि यार इस तरह की मेरी कंपनी है, उसकी ये fundamentals हैं, and then उसके बाद theoretically the computer can do all of those tasks. Do you think कि मॉडर्न डे अकाउंटिंग जो जिस तरह आपने पढ़ी है उस तरह से वो आज भी उतनी एप्लीकेबल है, या डू यू थिंक दैट्स गोइंग टू बी ऑटोमेटेड इन द कमिंग ईयर्स?
I think already we have softwares, like for example we use SAP, right? So
Right.
I think hardcore accounting या accountant की अगर मैं बात करूँ, that's a dying profession. And
Right.
the way that, as you said, I mean today with AI, with softwares and everything, वो जो पहले if you remember बड़े बड़े रजिस्टर होते थे, उसमें वो एंट्रीज हो रही होती थी, तो वो दोज डेज आर गॉन. लाइक नाउ इट्स लाइक आपका सॉफ्टवेयर वन क्लिक ऑफ अ बटन, वो सारी चीज़ें कर लेता है. आई थिंक नाउ एंड finance in itself has evolved a lot. It's no longer about being an hardcore sort of accountant per se. It's more about being that finance business partner. It's how you can sort of support the business, how you can sort of bring in those efficiencies from a finance perspective, and how you can take it forward. That's where the role is. Like it's more of strategical finance, more of business partnering, because जबकि एक hardcore accounting की चीज़ जो है वो अब एक तरीके से ख़त्म होती जा रही है.
Do you think talent is being produced? जो आपने intersectionality बताई है, interdisciplinary sort of, कि एक तरफ एक बिजनेस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का काम है, और एक तरफ क्योंकि अकाउंटिंग इतनी ज़्यादा सेपरेट करके लाइसेंसिंग डाल दी ना उसके अंदर कि वो कन्वेंशनल उसमें प्रॉब्ली लम्स का ACF का एक प्रोग्राम है, विच इज़ द ओनली वन जिसको मैं समवॉट कह सकता हूँ कि उसका बच्चा जो है वो. सो व्हाट आई एम थिंकिंग इज, फॉर एग्जांपल एक IT कंपनी है, और आई सी सो मेनी IT कंपनीज जो कि 200-300 बंदे की कंपनी है, जिसका मतलब ये कि उसका ईयरली टर्नओवर $3-4 मिलियन का है. और आई वर्कड इन वन एज वेल, एंड जनरली वो यही होता है कि एक कोई रैंडम होता है बंदा जो कि ना जिसको बस कहा जाता है कि यार एक्सेल में तो डाल दिया करें हर चीज़ और पहले 50 बंदों तक तो आपस में को-फाउंडर्स खुद ही कर रहे होते हैं ना मैनेज के, यार वो फ्रीलांसर पे हम करते थे, अब हमारा बिजनेस बढ़ गया है तो बस डॉलर आ रहा है, डॉलर जा रहा है, बैरियर टाउन के प्लॉट्स खरीद रहे हैं बट एक सर्टन टाइम के ऊपर जो है वो कहते हैं यार चलो बहुत ख्वारी बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गई, तो एक लड़का रख लो, वही लड़का जो है ना उसको कोई एक्स्ट्रा काम होगा ना, यार टेबलें ऑर्डर करनी है वो भी जल्दी से आ जा कर ले. देयर इज़ नो रियल हार्ड कोर फाइनेंस गाय हु कैन create models, for example, like an IT professional will not know कि यार अगर मैं ये करूँ तो मैं X increase के ऊपर Y turnover करके मैं Z outcome निकाल लूँगा. And by and large, the reasons why these companies don't have such people is because such people in Pakistan do not get developed academically, they get developed through trade and profession, right? आपने कहा पहले 5 साल के बाद फिर वो डेवलपमेंट शुरू होती है, और वो बंदा जो हार्डकोर कॉर्पोरेट में होता है फिर वो कहता है यार मैं क्या IT कंपनी में जाके क्या करूँगा. सो देयर इज अ डिस्कनेक्ट देयर, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट अनलेस यंग टैलेंट उस तरह का डेवलप हो जिसको इस तरह की कंपनीज इंटीग्रेट कर सकती हैं, अ लॉट ऑफ दैट टैलेंट डजंट एग्जिस्ट. व्हाट्स योर एक्सपीरियंस?
सो आई थिंक ये जनरली देयर इज अ परसेप्शन अबाउट फाइनेंस एंड द पीपल इन फाइनेंस, बहुत ड्राई फील्ड होती है, कॉर्पोरेट लेवल पे ही होता है यार इनसे तो दूर रहो, ये दे मेक योर लाइफ डिफ़िकल्ट, राइट. और आप सही कह रहे हैं कि वो थॉट प्रोसेस ये होता है कि एक अकाउंटेंट जो या एक फाइनेंस का आदमी जो होता है उसका काम होता है बस हिसाब किताब करना है, इंश्योर करना कि हाँ हो रही हैं, और वो उसी में वो साथ और भी चीज़ें ऐड हो जाती हैं. बट आई थिंक विथ हाउ द इंडस्ट्रीज आर इवॉल्विंग, with the tech sector coming in and everything, I think अब ये चीज़ें थोड़ी चेंज हो रही हैं बिकॉज वही वाली बात है. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट बजटिंग, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ROIs, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट फोरकास्टिंग, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट रीफोरकास्टिंग. एक्सचेंज रेट पहले इतने का था, 1 महीने बाद इतना हो गया. भाई जो आपने रीफोरकास्ट किया था अब आप कहाँ पे खड़े हुए हैं, यू नो. सो इट्स चेंजिंग. फिर आई थिंक माशाल्लाह से हमारे यहाँ का टैक्स इज़ सुपर सिंपल, सो दैट रिक्वायर्स दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ technical aptitude because उसको समझना, उसको फिर
that's a PhD on its own, right?
Correct. So उसमें भी काफ़ी आपकी ज़रूरत होती है. But I think like this is something that I tell my team in general as well, and this is I think what my mentors told me while growing up in the professional life, that being an hardcore accountant is like,
it doesn't cut it out anymore.
It's like then eventually you're gonna get stuck at a particular level and eventually get replaced as well because of all the softwares and everything. It's more about how you can be that integrated part of the business and you know ensuring that the business runs in a very smooth manner. तो आप जब जाते हैं ना इंडस्ट्री में, जब आप अगर आप यू नो when you'll come across finance people in general, you'll see that it's a very different ball game. It's they're integral part of running the company. They are like they're doing that business partnering aspect, that you know modeling, that forecasting. That's very important, and especially अभी जिस तरीके के economical times हैं, like not just locally but even globally as well. I think that's where I think मैं अक्सर बात कर रहा होता हूँ अपनी कंपनी, this year is a finance year because it's all about finance. It's all about sort of staying afloat. It's all about like you know surviving in the current scheme of things.
Right. So you worked at the family office for a year and a half. उसके बाद what did you do?
उसके बाद I joined Loads Limited. That's a listed entity. They are basically the manufacturers of automobile components such as exhaust, radiator, sheet metal. Was there for good 5.5-6 years. Sort of वहीं पे grooming हुई. Got my first exposure of SAP there.
Right.
Got that company listed, so I was part of that process as well.
Acha.
So like you know Pakistan Stock Exchange.
That's hardcore.
Yes. So I think very fortunate enough to go through that process. Then after spending good 5.5 years there, I moved to a different industry, which was TRG, the BPO. I was at their a sister concern known as DGS, Digital Global Services. They used to provide cable. They used to provide the back office for the cable operators in US. Was there for good 1 year and so.
और यही accounting का काम कर रहे थे for clients over in the US.
Yes, finance, accounting वही कर रहा था. फिर I think was there for 1.5 years. Then I was exploring. I was more in an exploring mode. Came across this opportunity. I was called in. This is back in 2018. A small office. Got interviewed there. Sort of sold to the vision. मेरा ये था कि यार either this is going to be something big or I'm gonna be jobless after maybe 6 months or a year. But you know the ex-CEO Numan. So you know the vision and the sort of the thought process that was shared, it was quite inspiring. It was something that I felt that you know it's going to be exciting and it's going to be a good ride. And
did you think it was okay you'd end up being the sort of the scale that you're at right now? Did you ever imagine कि इस point पे पहुंचेंगे?
Honestly, no. So I think it was
क्योंकि in a lot of ways in all of the companies that you've worked for and generally in most companies in Pakistan you don't see that scale, right? एक बड़ी कंपनी होती है, बड़ी कंपनी होती है, एक छोटी कंपनी होती है, एक छोटी कंपनी होती है, बस काम चल रहा होता है, पैसा बन रहा होता है and everybody is happy. But the idea कि यार हम 40 बंदे की कंपनी है और हम 400 पे चले गए और हमारे 40,000 राइडर्स फिर रहे हैं बाहर, that's
so मैंने जब स्टार्ट किया था तो I was the person who sort of laid the finance department foundation at foodpanda.
Achha.
Right? I started.
And how many people were there at the time?
2 people.
Really?
Like in my function.
Interesting.
So from 2 people, today I have a team of around 60 people under me.
Right.
So like, and I mean, I'll be honest, I can say कि हाँ देख लिया था something. I honestly no. As I said, I just like the idea. I said, yeah, this is something, एक आपके वो जो एक ownership आपकी एक आ जाती है, entrepreneur skills आपकी एक वो kick in कर जाती है. Yeah, this is something where you're gonna get the independence, you're gonna try out a lot of things, you're gonna be part of making something big, right? So that was the sort of the thought process, the energy behind it. And वो यही हुआ कि when I look back today, I mean, I see 4.5 years gone, and it's like, I mean, every day has been very different. Every year has been very different.
And it was a huge risk on your part. You had a short career, and then you decided to sabotage that by banking on this interesting idea. But in hindsight, if you look back, do you think, or rather, how would you put it? For an average viewer, बच्चा है जो देख रहा है और वो कह रहा है वो शायद एक जॉब में है और उसके सामने कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी है जो कि उसको बहुत एक्साइटिंग लग रही है, बट उसके शायद पीयर्स लेफ्ट राइट कह रहे होंगे कि यार पागल है तो क्या कर रहा है. अच्छा, लाइक आप मैं आईबैक से देखूँ ना तो योर लाइक एक्सपोर्ट वाली कंपनी है भाई, इधर कुछ साल लगा फिर बाहर निकल जाएंगे, क्या कर रहे हैं.
So I remember when I was joining it, when I shared with my friends in general, तो थोड़ा सा मतलब eyebrows were raised कि क्या कर रहे हो तुम, ये कौन सी कंपनी है, मतलब because the name was not there, right?
Yeah.
Although we are operational from 2016, but वो इस तरीके से था नहीं. But I think एक चीज़ which I have always been very fond of is your life should not have regrets, right? That's my basics, right? करके फेल हो गए तो it's still a learning. You'll be like ठीक है, at least I tried, right? तो उस वक्त it sort of kicked in. It was like कि नहीं यार,
When startup feels लेनी
कुछ करना है. There's something that's going to happen with this, right? And I look back, I think I was fortunate because अगर आज मैं देख रहा होता and I would have been like it, maybe I missed an opportunity. So I think for generally as well, I think it's very important that whatever you do, especially for people in finance, right? it's because of its nature and everything. I think regardless of how well-paying job you are in, regardless of how well stable, suited you are, if every morning you don't feel like coming to office, or if this energy is not there, then I think it's high time that you should now look for something else.
Makes sense. I'm gonna revert back to Ibad. आपने बताया कि आपने ग्रेजुएट करने के बाद एंग्रो में काम किया. How long was that?
So that was about like 7 months.
अच्छा.
Yeah.
That's odd considering कि एंग्रो is like the dream job of every engineer. And एंग्रो हो गई, PNG हो गई, इस तरह की. Why did you quit?
So I love the place. I love the culture. I think people really cared and looked out for each other. And I think there was a lot of surprise from the people who hired me or were part of that process. They used to have this thing called, I don't know, tiering in terms of high potential and whatnot. And they were quite surprised and disappointed that I had chosen to do that. But I think I'll slightly, rewind. So back in 2007, I had an internship opportunity with Shell. And I really expected to get that offer upon graduation, and I was a little surprised when I didn't get it. So when 7 months down the lane I finally got it, तो मुझे था कि यार okay, makes sense. I have seen the place, loved the place. Is an opportunity for me to be back in Karachi with my parents. And by that time I was sure that this engineering career, ये मुझे लग रहा है ये ज़रा management side की तरफ जाना शुरू हो गया है, तो मैं साथ साथ जो है ना I'll do an evening MBA from IBA,
right? And
then everything would start to get sorted in that line. So इस वजह से I think that's why I took that decision.
And Shell में what was the job?
So when I started out, the role was twofold. They were going through a business process re-engineering exercise, fancy word for SAP, and they wanted to implement it, a couple of modules within the engineering and operations functions, mostly around plant maintenance and materials management, which is procurement fancy, and then project engineering. So
right. So ये software based था ये essentially?
Yeah, so it was about making sure that जिस भी तरीके से वहाँ पे maintenance और projects कर रहे थे engineers, चाहे वो capex की definition हो, चाहे वो buying of spares हो, चाहे वो preventive maintenance और reactive maintenance हो, वो सारा systematize हो जाए through SAP. And to make it a bit more outsourced, so they wanted to do fewer in-house engineers and do more of contractor-based management. So that was kind of what SAP was facilitating, and so the implementation was part of it. But kind of because when you have gone through that process, or आपको उस system का you get to know more than anybody else, and then obviously with an engineering background, वो खुद ब खुद transition कर गया into me being the key maintenance guy. For all the, I think at that time it was 11 depots or installations across Pakistan. So SAP, but for engineers, maintenance engineering and projects.
Okay.
So they wanted कि जो भी systems उनके अभी कागज़ पे इस तरीके से चल रहे हैं, इसको हमने automate और process engineering कैसे करनी है.
ठीक है.
So that's how it started.
और ये पाकिस्तान के लिए था?
ये पाकिस्तान के लिए था. And IBM was consulting for them at that time. तो वो जो था वहाँ से वो शुरू हुआ. लेकिन फिर ये हुआ कि the person who did this eventually transitioned into doing or managing all maintenance for oil terminals in Pakistan. So this is how kind of it transitioned into. The implementation went quite well. Allah का शुक्र है, Allah का करम एहसान है. So they said कि यार पाकिस्तानी को पाकिस्तान में ही बिठा के we have to get it done in UAE and Oman through frequent travel.
Okay.
So that is what happened, that my next extension of the role was KG, now you do and implement it there, and you then manage all preventive and reactive maintenance based out of Karachi.
But out of the Pakistani payroll, how disappointing.
So that is how it unfolded.
Right.
Uska ek consequence.
But that must be quite exciting for you. I mean, you've been in Karachi forever, then you go to GIK, then you have this role where you're with the family as well, but in a way have that exposure, global exposure as well.
And that had an impact. It was kind of all leading up to something, I guess. For me, it was very clear कि यार थोड़ा सा कोई semi-global international leadership कोई role हो. And as a consequence, I had to drop out of IBA because IBA was...
So you'd gotten into IBA? Like
I
that
did
was
2
happening?
semesters and actually I had a better score at my MBA than I did at my engineering.
Really?
And I had to drop out because IBA had a policy of 7 absences you're out.
Acha.
And that 6 to 9 thing was not working with my travel.
Right.
So या तो ये होता था कि...
Did you travel क्या Monday to Friday type travel हो रहा होता था?
It was a little difficult. So Pakistan, just think about it this way. Pakistan का work week है Monday to Friday. Dubai का at that time was
Sunday to Thursday,
and Oman was Saturday to Wednesday.
So Oman अपने flow में चल रहा था.
अपने flow में चल रहा था Oman. And I was working 7 days a week, technically.
Yeah.
Because somebody somewhere had some maintenance problem coming in somewhere.
Yeah.
And Ibad is responsible for it because मेरे pump की seal टूटी हुई है और loading arm के अंदर से drip कर रहा है oil and stuff like that.
And this is not even a maintenance problem. कि आपका यार ठीक है whatever. तेल गिर रहा है तो पटाखा बटने से बेहतर है कि करो उसको figure out.
Correct. And Shell is very very big on a safety culture. They try their level best and they have been some of the forerunners in KR. Safety अगर नहीं है तो धंधा बंद कर देना है. And they have done those things in the past. So it was a super critical job. I couldn't continue my MBA from IB as a result. And then मुझे समझ भी आ गया कि यार मैं नहीं सीख रहा क्योंकि मैं सीख ही नहीं. I was brain dead by the time I used to reach at 6:15. अगर टीचर ने इजाज़त दे दी कि क्लास में दाखिल हो जाओ 15 मिनट लेट कराची के ट्रैफिक के बावजूद. So then I was kind enough to, my line manager was acting as my mentor as well. And he said कि यार तुम्हारा एक cluster based role है, your CV is shaping up, you need to get an international MBA. And we had people to look up to. There was in succession there were 3 MDs at Shell, 1 from LBS and 2 from INSEAD. So it was कि यार क्या कर सकते हो, US can't afford 2 years, 1 year program, इन्हीं को देखो, इन्हीं से लिखवाओ approvals लो letters की, and that's how I eventually ended up at INSEAD after like 5 years in Shell.
Interesting. 5 years in Shell. And so tell me about INSEAD for a lot of people who don't know what is that and how was that experience?
INSEAD is more than life-changing in more than one way, I think.
INSEAD, I believe, right now either is the first or the second best school, MBA school in the world.
As per the Financial Times latest ranking, it is the second.
Right.
But it has always been within the top 5 globally.
And they have 2 campuses, right? One in Singapore, one in France.
So they have now 4.
Okay.
2 are two of them main wale hain. So ek
Legacy.
France campus is the main one, and then the Singapore one is an equally staffed, equipped campus. Abu Dhabi became this third campus where you could go away and do a semester. You can't do the full program there.
Acha, so you basically get enrolled in, let's say, France, and then you maybe do a semester in Abu Dhabi.
Especially if you want to look at a career in the Middle East. So you can take 2 months there, do a bit of networking, job search over there, or obviously you get to learn what are the building blocks of business in the Middle East.
Right.
So you have specific courses at that campus. Executive education बहुत होती है वहाँ पे, and now the 4th chapter has opened up in San Francisco because INSEAD felt that they were
technology side पे थोड़ा सा
technology पे है, अच्छे खासे startups हैं, probably the most tech oriented school in Europe, but not having a presence in San Francisco meant that they were missing out on something. So they have opened up a chapter, लेकिन वहाँ पे there is no module or no semester that happens, at least as of now.
अच्छा.
So it's a bit more of getting to know people, road shows, networking, venture capitalist के साथ आप pitch decks करके ले आएँ, कोई competition जीत जाएँ, startup boot camp, इस टाइप की चीज़ें अभी हैं.
नहीं, so France में किस जगह पे था इनका campus?
So France में इनका campus है Fontainebleau में. Fontainebleau is a village town 65 kilometers south of Paris.
Right, and this was self-funded?
This was mostly self-funded and partial scholarship.
Right.
Yeah.
How was it? How was France?
Amazing. I think so you have a choice कि आप फ्रांस जाएं या आप सिंगापुर जाएं या आप एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम करें. And मैंने आउटसेट पे ही कहा था कि मैं पूरा साल, एक तो it's technically not even a year-long program, it's a 10-month program.
अच्छा.
तो I said कि with an internship it becomes a 1-year program. तो 1 साल है और मैंने कहा कि यार I don't know when I'm going to get this opportunity to see Europe again. So there is no way I'm going to Singapore. And I had an opportunity to go to a lot of Southeast Asia during my stint at Shell. तो मुझे ये था कि यार कुछ नया देखना है, तो I chose the Fonty campus.
And MBA generally, what is it like? Is it more, a lot of people say that it's networking and it's case studies and it's not how education is perceived otherwise. You're an engineer, hardcore engineering में तो बड़ा technical this and that वो सारा है. So what was the INSEAD MBA experience for you?
So you're right. It was a networking opportunity. It was a brand, and it is about. I think that you have to put into context what this experience looks like. You're cramming a 2-year MBA, 80% of a 2-year MBA into 12 months.
Right.
So you're not going to have everything at your disposal as a business professional. So it's not a typical MBA. And it is all about prioritization. जो चीज़ आप करेंगे, आप कुछ एक चीज़ पकड़ेंगे और आप hopefully you will become very good at it because all your electives will be associated or linked with it. Lekin if you think that, for example, you're going to be like super deep into stuff. So for example, if you want to do investment banking, then probably it is not the best place to go.
Right.
Finance professionals के लिए you're probably better off going to a Wharton or an LBS. Well, not even LBS now anymore, I guess, but because of what has happened with Brexit.
Right.
But ये कि you're probably better off somewhere else. This is a place more for strategy and general management.
Right.
Because they force you into situations where you have to be uncomfortable and lead teams that you did not make.
Right.
So the good thing about is that there's a core group which is called a P1. So we have 5 periods of 2 months each. This is how the 10 months are spread out.
Right.
और जो पहले 2 periods होते हैं उसके अंदर a random group is made for the first 4 months जो आप choose नहीं करते. And you have to make your core MBA group with them.
Right.
और आप अपने सारे courses उनके साथ करते हैं. शुरू के जो 8 से 10 subjects होते हैं.
Right.
And your
so उन्हीं से आपने assignments भी उनके साथ ही करनी है, आपने सारा कुछ उनके साथ करना है. आप ये नहीं चूज कर सकते कि यार बैक बेंचर मैं भी हूँ, तू भी है, आज हम मिलके बनाते हैं.
नहीं. And a lot of interesting things happen because some groups work perfectly, some don't because everybody's trying to be a leader. सम वर्क बिकॉज ये हो जाता है कि ये तो ये काम ही नहीं करेगा, तो हम ही को करना है, ठीक है। कुछ ग्रुप्स ऐसे बनते हैं,
एनसीईआरटी के एमबीए में भी ये हो रहा है।
बिल्कुल। और कुछ में ये होता है जो एक स्टैंडर्ड फार्मूला होता है वो होता है कॉम्पिटेंसेस डिवाइड कर लो। ओके, यू आर द फाइनेंस गाय, तो बॉक्स में डालना बड़ा ज़रूरी हो जाता है कुछ केसेस में। ये वाले कोर्सेज और असाइनमेंट्स तुम करो, ये हम करें, और इस तरह, एंड देन यू होप एंड प्रे टू गॉड दैट दैट पर्सन डज इट वेल।
Yeah, but I mean, what sort of courses are you guys doing? Are you looking at different businesses and how they work and how they failed and how they became successful? Yeah, are you taking hardcore, let's say, accounting course and finance course and the different aspects of business?
So it's a bit of a marriage of the two. तो होता है कि कुछ every course has case studies for sure, but some have more case studies than others. तो अगर organizational behavior, which is super important क्योंकि that is their foundation for psychology and general management, okay, trying to understand how people work and how they think and what are their motivations, etc. तो it will be, every class will be a case study. There is no other way around it. लेकिन इसके अलावा अगर आप accounting कह रहे हैं, आप corporate finance कह रहे हैं, you know, call और put options की बात हो रही है, then every class wouldn't be a case. Probably you will have 4 classes of theory and then 1 class of a case study,
right.
Stuff like that. So.
And did you know these things, calls and puts and यार वही जाके सीखा था?
नहीं, and I just wished कि यार ये जल्दी ख़त्म हो ताकि मैं P3 onwards electives में जाऊँ, क्योंकि यार ये तो मुझसे नहीं होता। So
और ये essential था, ये mandatory था, ये सबको लेना ही लेना था।
हाँ, कुछ चीज़ें कोर हैं कि आपको you need to know the basics of corporate finance, and थोड़ा सा उसमें ये भी था कि कुछ cases में it is about के मेक और बाय डिसीशंस वाली चीज़ तो इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि जी हाउ डू यू डू कि जी मेक वर्सेस बाय एनालिसिस है, आप ROIs, प्रेजेंट वैल्यू, ये वगैरह कैसे कैलकुलेट करते हैं। बस ये वाला जो था ना, जो स्टॉक्स और ये वाला था, दैट वाज नेवर रियली अप माय एली। बट उनको ये होता है कि यू नीड टू नो बिकॉज एट सम पॉइंट यू विल बी इन अ कॉन्टेक्स्ट जहाँ पे इसको एटलीस्ट समझना ज़रूरी है, इवन इफ यू आर नॉट सम काइंड ऑफ एक्सपर्ट प्रैक्टिशनर।
Makes sense.
तो या
And so what did you do after you were done? आपने by the way यूरोप ट्रैवल कर लिया पूरा अपना उस टाइम पे?
अच्छा खासा, नॉट ऑल, लेकिन ये कि अच्छा खासा मुझे
एक साल में ज़ाहिर है विद एन MBA आप कितना ही कर सकते थे?
ना कर सकते हैं। It's all about prioritization.
Of course.
But after that I tried to dabble a little bit with having my own startup with a friend in Singapore.
किस स्पेस में था वो?
That was learning. So that was a bit more around MOOCs का बड़ा उस वक्त शोशा होगा था, you know, Coursera was doing very well, Udemy, Udacity, and somehow to marry that with a niche LinkedIn of sorts, but for select Ivy League / top MBA cohorts.
Right.
तो वहाँ it started out, but then we slowly realized कि यार ये there were challenges, there were things that the investor was trying to push, seed वाला only, कि जहाँ पे मुझे फिर लगा कि यार then I let my friend carry on with it, and then I kind of left it after like 3 or 4 months or something like that.
Right.
And then I went to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia because again I was trying to follow my parents, और ये थोड़ा सा ये ज़रा uncomfortable भी था कि वो भी समझ नहीं आ रहा था, और ज़रा पेरेंट्स मेरे फादर रिलोकेट हो गए थे आफ्टर ही वॉज अ करियर के इलेक्ट्रिक पर्सन, but then he got a consultant's opportunity in Jeddah with their Saudi electricity company. So he had moved over actually back as of 2010. And my mother went and joined him as well जब मैं एक दफ़ा INSEAD चला गया. So then I followed them. There was this company which was a bit of a family business of proportions that we don't really understand, like a larger family business that people haven't really heard of. 63 countries में पता नहीं 13 plus businesses and stuff like that. And उनका जो energy arm था, there were some ex-Shell colleagues over there, so it was easier to make a connect, and that's where I was for about 6 years.
Achha.
In different capacities.
What sort of capacities?
So it started off with a stint in business development in Eastern and Southern Africa. So it was about trying to tell the purest, highest quality oil comes from the source, and trying to sell it at a premium in African markets.
Okay.
That was interesting because obviously...
And this was more like a financial analyst role? Or?
No, this was a business development and sales role. So it was about
flying out to all these places?
Yes. Excellent experience. The Cameroons, the Ugandas, and other than Somalia, probably all of East Africa. Kenya, Tanzania, a lot. South Africa, Zimbabwe.
And these were safe and secure?
Broadly
Achha.
speaking, I think we made a few choices of not to go. So Congo we didn't go. Somalia, Mogadishu, हालांकि the distributor हमको बुलाता रहता था कि यार आओ, मोगाडिशु के अंदर भी ये perception है. मैंने कहा मेरी अम्मा जो है ना, I don't think she's going to be sold on that if you know. And I think वहाँ पे वो कोई that ship piracy thing had already started at that point.
Right.
So,
Right.
none of that. They weren't having any of that. But broadly, some places are really amazing. Like I was South Africa obviously is very different. It's like नॉर्थ और साउथ में बड़ा फ़र्क है.
Right.
और फिर एक बीच का बेल्ट है ईस्ट का और सेंटर का और वेस्ट का, विच इज़ मोर इम्पोवेरिश्ड. थिंग्स आर मोर डिफिकल्ट देयर. इवन देयर क्योंकि ईस्ट और वेस्ट में पोर्ट्स हैं, सो दे आर वेल ऑफ. और बेचारा जो लैंड सेंट्रल अफ्रीका, दैट्स अ गॉनर.
Right.
तो बहुत ज़्यादा डाइवर्सिटी है, लैंग्वेजेस की भी, पीपल की भी. वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. सो दैट आई डिड दैट रोल फॉर अबाउट 1.5 years. After that, because the company thought कि I was very good at go to market, तो उन्होंने कहा कि यार सिर्फ go to market नहीं, he is more of a strategy person, तो इसको head office दोबारा, like he should spend more time in Jeddah. So I came into the corporate office of this subsidiary and I did corporate strategy, M&A for about, again, close to 1.5-2 years.
Interesting. When someone says corporate strategy, ये strategy का role है, मुझे कभी इसकी समझ नहीं आई. What do you do all day? You know, you're eating a bubble gum and think just कुछ thought I note लिख दिया. How does it actually work practically? Because I'm sure उसकी 10 चीज़ें होंगी before you can decide a strategy.
Yeah. So corporate strategy is different from business strategy. Business strategy, जो भी business चला रहा होता है, mostly that person best understands and knows. Otherwise, they wouldn't be leading that business function.
And उसमें जो inputs होंगे वो current business के dynamics के numbers and वो सारा का सारा उसके हिसाब से वो deal हो रहा होगा.
Absolutely. वहाँ पे corporate strategy का role बहुत कम होता है. तो corporate strategy support करती है with an outside view or analysis which for one reason or another the business itself is unable to see.
ठीक है.
So those were more of business improvement projects. कि यार let us take a look. Okay, we have gotten some benchmarks outside on how your business should be performing. Yeah, these are the important KPIs and metrics.
Right.
This is how it should have been doing. Even if you think you're doing a great job, I think इसमें cushion है.
So corporate strategy, my understanding is that basically you are so it's one step above where let's say there are 5 business units. Every business unit in its isolation, it has their own strategy, but then you're looking at all 5 and you're seeing the best, most optimized one, and you're seeing what can we learn from here and what can we implement in other areas to be increasing their efficiency.
I think 3 में break कर लेते हैं. So broadly corporate strategy में 3 चीज़ें थी. एक तो था lens के if a working very closely with the finance function, obviously, कि अगर इतना किटी और इतना पैसा है, तो नोइंग के हमारे पास इतना पैसा है तो पोर्टफोलियो स्ट्रैटेजी होगी क्या, किसके पास कितना पैसा जाना चाहिए, क्यों, किससे रिटर्न आएगा, किस बिजनेस का पैसा किस दूसरे में री इन्वेस्ट करेंगे. क्योंकि फॉर एग्जांपल एक अब कैश काउ बन चुका है, इट्स ऑलरेडी डूइंग वेल, मे बी वो अपने ही कैश से अपने आप को सस्टेन कर सकता है. एक नया बिजनेस खड़ा करना चाह रहे हैं, उसके अंदर इसका पैसा निकाल के री इन्वेस्ट करेंगे बिकॉज इट्स गोइंग टू गेट यू ग्रोथ फॉर द फ्यूचर.
राइट.
तो इट इज़ अबाउट रिसोर्स एलोकेशन as well. So that's one piece. The second piece at a smaller level is business improvement within each unit by bringing an external consultant's perspective. और उसमें गालियाँ सुनना. Because it's very much the same as a external, just like you would say for someone coming from a McKinsey, Bain, BCG. Now this is one of our guys and he thinks he knows more about us than we actually do. Who the hell does he think he is? So that is the second one. And
so
then
you become the suit that everybody hates.
Oh my goodness. And then the third one is linked to this resource allocation wala bit के structured M&A. हमें क्या क्या नेक्स्ट स्टेप्स करने हैं जो हम खुद कैपेबिलिटीज़ बिल्ड नहीं कर सकते, एंड आर देयर एनी कैपेबिलिटीज़ दैट वी कैन जस्ट गेट एंड इट्स चीपर एक्चुअली टू बाय देम देन टू बिल्ड देम.
इंटरेस्टिंग.
तो ये दिस एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड बिकमिंग द बिगर पीस फॉर अस इन अ सेंस, क्योंकि 13 बिजनेस कंपनीज थी. दिस वाज द बिगेस्ट यूनिट, एनर्जी और ऑटोमोटिव वाला जो आर्म था. तो जो ग्रुप कॉर्पोरेट स्ट्रैटेजी ऑफिस था, इट जस्ट हैड डील्स लाइंड अप लाइक. एंड आवर जॉब वॉज कि भाई कमर्शियल ड्यू डिलिजेंस कि आप बैठे हुए अंदर, आपने एवेल्यूएट करना, डज दिस एक्चुअली मेक सेंस और नॉट. सो व्हाइल यू आर इन्वॉल्व इन द होल डील, यू गेट द डेटा रेडी, डेटा रूम्स, working with the investment bankers and consultants and the legal due diligence वाले lawyers and whatnot. लेकिन सबसे important जो commercial due diligence है उसको खुद own करना. Like that we had this strong belief कि financial due diligence तो चलो you'll get a big four. The legal due diligence you'll get an excellent M&A law firm. लेकिन जो commercial है never leave it to the bankers and the consultants.
वो अपना पैसा लेके निकल जाएंगे और आगे आपके सर पे पड़ेगी.
Because at the end of the day उनको तो retainer मिल ही जाएगा. They'll get one of the two, retainer या success fee.
Right.
तो अगर success fee ना आई और सिर्फ retainer हुआ तो that's a lot of money for 6 to 8 weeks or whatnot. So that was the kind of role.
Interesting. And so you were there for 6 years?
So ये दूसरा role था. And then I think I went into one business वो improvement वाले के अंदर a little bit too much, which was the retail business. It was not doing well for 3.5-4 years. And then the group chairman and vice chairman, they said कि तुम कब तक ये डेक्स और ये एक्सेल शीट्स पे काम करते रहोगे. सो डू यू हैव एनी इंटरेस्ट इन एक्चुअली ऑपरेटिंग अ बिजनेस बिकॉज दिस इज नॉट डूइंग वेल. तो या तो हमने इसको 1.5 साल के अंदर जो है ना हमने इसको लीज आउट कर देना. सो वी इट वाज लाइक अ टोटल बोंजू या शेल सेलेक्ट ऑन आवर पंप. सो पेट्रोमैन वाज द नेम ऑफ द कंपनी, द नेम ऑफ द ब्रांड वाज प्रीमो. वी वांटेड टू हैव आवर ओन ब्रांड. 1.5 साल में अगर ये अब नहीं चला क्योंकि ऑलरेडी 3.5 साल हो चुका है तो वील गिव इट
थर्ड पार्टी को दे देंगे. तो
हम किसी सर्कल के या स्पार एक्सप्रेस किसी को हमने बेचना है. तो इफ़ यू थिंक यू कैन टर्न अराउंड, we hope that you'll be able to do it. We'll try to find you something if it doesn't. Magar if you're interested तो go ahead. And I said कि यार ये तो मुझे मतलब for
that's an experience of a lifetime, right?
Experience of a lifetime.
Because वो आपको पूरा उन्होंने एक प्लेग्राउंड दे दिया कि भाई तू खेल और अगर तू सक्सेसफुल हो गया तो MBA डिग्री के साथ तूने इंसाफ किया आज.
I just cannot thank my bosses and especially my mentor over there enough.
Were these Pakistanis?
It was a mix. So right. There were South Africans, there were Sri Lankans, but there was Pakistani crop at the top. It would have been difficult.
Are there a lot of Pakistanis in the Middle East right at the top?
Difficult to say. So there are Pakistanis. There are a lot more other nationalities.
Right.
And let's say certain other passports always get preference more.
Right.
But there is a fair number of Pakistanis in leadership positions. Mostly it's very interesting कि उन्होंने कोई काम किया है where they have come in, they have actually set up something like a telecom business या airlines and then they have handed it over to somebody else and moved on. So it's been a bit like that.
More consulting and
No, actual business building, but then something comes in as a wave of localization or Emiratization or Saudization.
I see.
So then the job is done and then they have to go back home. So
operations के लिए वो फिर अपने बंदों को ले आते हैं. So you were there and this was, how did that turnaround go, by the way?
It went out better than we thought. Allah का लाख एहसान है. But आज कहना easy है retrospect में. We all feared for our jobs. And the issue was there was another problem जो कि कुछ fundamental चीज़ें थीं जो कि सिर्फ करने के बाद idea हुआ. नहीं करते तो नहीं पता चलता. Which was कि it was a totally demoralized team. Like for 3.5 years they were just told कि यार you're just wasting this company's money because हर गुजरता शख्स बोलता है ये business क्यों करते हैं हम? Like ये करते क्या हैं? Like so just imagine what's going through their minds.
So even if all the numbers are fine, just the team, the lack of morale there is going to make sure कि कोई काम नहीं हो काम का.
नहीं हो सकता. And just think about it. एक कंपनी ने गैस स्टेशन लगा दिए हैं और वो ये कह रहे हैं कि गैस स्टेशन तो लगते रहेंगे लेकिन ये ब्रांड जो है ना अभी 9 पे रुक जाओ. अब मज़ीद जो कन्वीनियंस स्टोर हैं वो 9 के बाद ना खोलो. It's demoralizing कि यार just our business is not going to be grown. शायद हमें बेच देंगे, कोई और ब्रांड आ जाएगा, क्या होगा? And it is a huge challenge. And then think of where they're sitting. कि there is this guy who has never really managed a P&L. मतलब what's going to happen? So it was very, very interesting.
And if I can drive the number, you were maybe 30 at the time?
No, I was probably 33 at that time.
Okay. But still fairly
32,
young.
33, yeah.
Right? In that position, so it's very difficult. वो resentment आ जाती है. यार ये क्या चल रहा है?
I had older team members who I had to manage for sure. And they were also different nationalities.
Yeah.
So there were Indians, there were Filipinos. Filipinos का बहुत Middle East में like from a customer service angle ये वाला perspective है कि यार ये काम तो यही अच्छा कर सकते हैं. And to be honest, it is
true by and large.
By and large. and multiple nationalities and different age groups. So quite interesting. Quite interesting.
Do you think that experience is what made your in a lot of ways जो एक बंदा एक breakout role होता है हमेशा जो कि आपको हमेशा याद आता है कि यार इसके बाद से my trajectory was different? Would that be this one?
I would say so. I think it would have to be very close between this role and the previous corporate strategy role.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So why do you leave? Why do you leave Saudi and come back? Because considering your pace of growth, even if you had sort of laterally transitioned to another place, maybe you were bored of what you were doing or you were already done with it. Why did you come back?
So there were two reasons, I would say. The first one was, again, my father retired in 2018 और वो आ गए थे पाकिस्तान, and it had started to play on my mind कि यार now I again they're alone, this career looks okay, ये सही जा रहा है, लेकिन ये कि they would need me, they already do and I miss them, like वाली बात है, तो अब करना क्या. And while that was playing on my mind, some changes happened at the board level. And some of the people who were very close to me in terms of mentors, they started to transition out. And then kind of it became a no-brainer कि यार things are going well, लेकिन comfort zone हो गया. मुझे 3-3.5 साल हो गए इस रोल के अंदर. Now things are set. एक चीज़ जो stuck थी उसको 9 stores से 33 stores तक grow भी कर दिया, क्योंकि we got the mandate कि यार जब turn around हुआ है तो now you can start growing it. So what's really left now, there is no real support potentially at the top. And my parents are not here. So it started playing on my mind कि यार I need to start looking. Yeah.
Interesting. Pakistan में जब आप आए हैं तो what was your, मतलब क्या किया है? Did you land into foodpanda or?
नहीं. So I did a very short role for about 5 months as Chief Operating Officer of Spar. So Spar is a global chain of like 13,500 stores. But इधर जो उनके जो license था वो it was with Burq, which is a very large distribution group, family business in Pakistan. So I started off with them. We had like this whole LinkedIn exchange, and it kind of made sense after multiple rounds. I joined them first, and then again through LinkedIn I got reached out by foodpanda, and while things were going okay there, the pace was a bit not the same. The excitement was not the same. It seemed a little bit more कि यार वही काम जो सऊदी अरब में कर दिया है वही करना है. यहाँ पे इनके 2 से 3 स्टोर्स उतना अच्छा शायद परफॉर्म नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन कर लेंगे इंशाल्लाह. लेकिन टाइम लगेगा, और फिर वही होगा, टर्न अराउंड करो, टाइम लगेगा, मैंडेट लो फॉर फर्दर ग्रोथ. बट द मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग वॉज दैट एट द एज ऑफ 34 एट दैट टाइम आई थॉट कि अगर मैंने अभी टेक नहीं किया तो I will rue this for the rest of my life.
Right.
ये मौका नहीं आता.
So आपने देखा कि दुनिया आगे चेंज होने वाली है and you need to converge into that sort of space. So then you finally joined foodpanda.
Yeah, and it was peak COVID. So there was a little bit कि यार there will be some tailwind as well. Like I was very confident कि things are headed in a way कि this will have adoption anyway. But there will be accelerated adoption because you could see it in front of your eyes कि यार इस टाइम पे जा सकते हैं, सुपरमार्केट इतने टाइम से इतने टाइम खुलेगी, इतने लोग से ज़्यादा एक वक्त में एंटर नहीं हो सकते. So it kind of started to make sense कि convenience will now take new meaning.
Right. And उस वक्त रोल आपका क्या था जो आपने स्टार्ट किया?
So when I started off, it has been the same role. It has kind of grown over a period of time in terms of number of businesses, but the core job at that time was just to launch Pandamart. So foodpanda ने ग्रोसरी में एंटर करना है, and we want someone
2019 में 20 में
July 2020.
अच्छा, so you joined peak COVID. Yeah, एक second. You joined a startup pre-COVID. How does that? Wow.
So
घर वालों ने कुछ नहीं बोला कि बेटा सोच ले क्या कर रहा है?
नहीं बोला. Again, I think जो टेक वाली चीज़ थी, they knew कि I was pretty sold कि यार this is the chance to kind of do it. And then obviously there's the whole support system that I've alhamdulillah developed over time. People have been kind enough to advise besides family, senior business leaders कि यार मैं क्या करूँ. The same people who were my bosses in Saudi, for example, in Pakistan, I always went back to them कि यार क्या ख्याल है. And they were like कि भाई no brainer है, क्या मतलब करो इसको, explore करो.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to now sort of dive right into foodpanda. And I'm going to start off with a simpler question that maybe the both of you can touch upon based on your own but पहले तो मुझे ये बताएं कि कैसे हालात हैं There's the economic situation going on. So it's multi-layered, both in terms of the current Pakistani economic situation and then the global sort of sentiment shift away from quick commerce, where at one point we were like, wow, like you mentioned, convenience is going to reign supreme, and we're going to grow into this sort of interesting lifestyle where everything will be delivered to you rather than you going out. And in a lot of ways, we've seen that to not hold true, where human behavior hasn't been as easy to change as a lot of people hoped, even with a great pandemic altering it in a lot of ways. So with the context of foodpanda and Pandamart particularly, how do you see the current economic situation and the changing dynamics of the sort of quick commerce business?
काफ़ी layered question है. Is it easy to run this business? The answer would be no. But is there traction? I think for sure there is traction even post-COVID.
Is there a business? I think let's start with that.
There is a business. There is a business provided you think as a business person first, rather than कि आप ये बोलें कि यार, for example, there is some investor to appease in terms of GMV alone. And I think वहाँ पे I think we as a group are very fortunate to have Delivery Hero quite sane in that way. 70 countries में operate करते हैं, listed company है, उस तरीके के pressures नहीं हैं. तो आई थिंक दे आर क्वाइट क्लियर कि यार ग्रो करना है, मार्केट शेयर भी चाहिए, बट इट इज़ नेवर गोइंग टू बी मार्केट शेयर एट ऑल कॉस्ट्स. इट हैज़ टू बी प्रूडेंट. और ये कि अगर फाइट करना हुआ तो फाइट करेंगे, बट रियली ऐसा नहीं है कि फंडामेंटल्स ऑफ द बिजनेस get compromised for the sake of some rapid growth. Especially अगर ऐसा लगता है कि fundamentals का एक element at least ये है कि fast adoption means giving deep discounts to people who might have zero loyalty to you and might never come back.
Yeah.
तो ये business नहीं.
Unit economics बड़ा आजकल site होता है. Where does that stand? Maz, maybe you could add to that.
So I think we started in December 2020.
November, December. Yeah.
No, November, December. That was our first store, like first inaugurated store.
Karachi में हुआ था?
Karachi. Yes. So before that, foodpanda was an extremely asset-light company. Asset ही नहीं था, कुछ नहीं था. फिर इबाद आए, उन्होंने फिर रिटेल आया. हमने कहा हमें फिजिकल स्टोर चाहिए होगा. So and then उसमें इन्वेंट्री चाहिए होगी. And then it all sort of came in. I think, and back then when I was just hearing about it, I was recalling that उस वक्त आपको याद होगा जब कोविड का पीक चल रहा था, एक शाउट आई 20 मिनट, फिर उसकी काउंटर शाउट आई 15 मिनट, फिर उसकी काउंटर शाउट आई 10 मिनट, फिर पता चला दुनिया में हो रहा है 6 मिनट में डिलीवरी हो रही है. I'm like, where this, as a finance guy I was like, कहाँ जाके ये रुकेगा, मतलब it has to stop. But then over time, as you said, it evolved. So we did get a lot of traction. But then it was more that sort of creating that convenience for an end customer. कि उसे ये convenience, ऐसे price point भी अच्छा मिले, convenience भी अच्छा मिले, and the tick that a person has कि यार मुझे यहाँ से ये चीज़ लेनी है तो ये सारी चीज़ें fulfill हो रही हैं, उस basis पे हमने उसकी तरफ बहुत fundamentally काम किया. So I think जो basics हमारे Pandamart के business के भी जो हम जिस base पे हमने खड़ा किया, those basics were very important and they were sort of outlined in a great manner to begin with.
Right.
तो उसकी वजह से हुआ ये कि अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह मंथ ऑन मंथ स्टोर्स भी खुलते हैं, ग्रोथ भी मिलती रही. फिर एक टाइम आया दैट वी सेड दैट ओके अब एक्सपेंशन करने की हमें ज़रूरत नहीं है, लेट्स गो बैक टू ऑल द स्टोर्स दैट वी हैव एंड उसे ऑप्टिमाइज़ करें, ग्रो करें एंड उसे वो करें. सो आई थिंक अल्लाह का शुक्र है, थिंग्स हैव बीन गोइंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन. आपको याद होगा बीच में आई थिंक इट वाज लास्ट ईयर व्हेन अ लॉट ऑफ globally as well the questions were raised, and even today questions are raised around quick commerce. जैसे आपने भी कहा, whether is it a business to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So I think alhamdulillah we are out of that sort of question and mashallah we have a business which is growing. Yes, it's no longer those COVID numbers per se जहाँ पे 100x और 10x और इस तरीके की जो हम numbers देखते थे वो नहीं है, but yes, it's now steady growth है.
बर्न कितना ज़्यादा है इन द इंटायर स्टोरी? बिकॉज बर्न से मुराद मेरा खासकर वो होगा कि देखें, एक तो ग्रोथ का बर्न होता है ना। पिछले दिनों मैं एक साहब से मिला, आपके कंपेटिटर हैं, मैं उनका नाम नहीं बताऊंगा, उनसे मैंने ये सवाल बोला, मैंने कहा कि आप लोगों का क्या सीन चल रहा है? उन्होंने कहा यार देखो, ऑपरेशनली हम जो है वो सॉर्ट ऑफ ब्रेक इवन पे हैं, हमारे ऑपरेशंस चल रहे हैं, पैसा आता है पैसा जाता है। ग्रो करना है तो मार्केटिंग के ऊपर और एक्स चीज़ों के ऊपर पैसा लगेगा, वो फिर प्रिंसिपल डिसीजन है यार, जब पैसा होगा ग्रो कर लेंगे, नहीं करना होगा रुक जाएंगे। Where do you stand?
I think for us it's something similar as well. The only thing is I think हमारे पास थोड़ी सी किटी बच जाती है मार्केटिंग के लिए भी. So I think हम इसलिए
within the same
yes, within the same P&L
right,
which is there. But I think it is an investment based business because आप देखें वही वाली burn तो नहीं है because this is all capex, right? मतलब आपकी inventory जो आप store setup करते हैं, this is all purely investment that you do. But as of today, I think from an operations perspective, we are doing well. And operationally, we are profitable. And inshallah, growth के लिए भी I think we are venturing into things जो I think अभी बात भी बताएंगे. And things are going in the right direction.
Right. इबाद मुझे बताएं कि आप was the idea for getting into retail, as you mentioned, was that your idea or was that coming from the group, and then because it was coming from the group they sort of coached you कि यार आपका retail का experience है and maybe you can come and set it up?
I think group का ही idea था. I think it was, in fact it was all part of those interesting interview conversations कि यार ये सोच रहे हैं, क्या ख्याल है, like a lot of the interviews were mostly around क्या ख्याल है, ये अच्छा idea है, ये चलेगा. Like obviously they also wanted to do two things के one was I think probably leadership also wanted to bounce off के यार कि हम जो एक चीज़ सोच रहे हैं तो the good thing is that things are quite decentralized relatively as compared to many other groups. Not that they are fully decentralized, but we have a lot more autonomy in foodpanda at a country level than perhaps many other organizations. और ये I think this is what makes us distinctive in terms of फिर हम क्या achieve कर पाते हैं या नहीं कर पाते. लेकिन फिर ये होता है कि यार कोई ये नहीं है कि ये करना है तो सो आई थिंक देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ बैक एंड फोर्थ के अच्छा आइडिया है नहीं है. सो उसमें एक ये भी चीज़ होती है कि भाई फिट होगा, इफ़ द पर्सन हिमसेल्फ इज़ नॉट सोल्ड ऑन द आइडिया तो देन व्हाट्स द पॉइंट. बट ऑल्सो कि यार कुछ सीखते हैं कि बंदा मतलब रिटेल बैकग्राउंड से आ रहा है, इसको कुछ पता होगा. तो दैट्स हाउ द कॉन्वर्सेशन वेंट. मैं आई सेड कि यार धंधा है, जिसको करना आता है वो सर्वाइव करेगा. एंड ऑब्वियसली उस वक्त हमने कुछ देखा नहीं था कि आगे ब्लड बात क्या आने वाला है. लेकिन इट वाज वेरी क्लियर कि यार देखें रिटेल इज़ अ वेरी थिन मार्जिन बिजनेस इवन फॉर वॉक इन ब्रिक एंड मॉर्टर स्टोर्स. अब आपने उसके ऊपर एक एडेड लेग डिलीवरी का लगा दिया तो मार्जिन इज गोइंग टू बी इवन मोर डिप्लीटेड. तो आपके फंडामेंटल्स ठीक होने चाहिए. एंड आई थिंक alluding to what Maz had said and very rightly so कि हमने कुछ चीज़ें वी फील अच्छी की as compared to others which put us in that spot because there were certain compromises that we never made
like
from
what?
day one. तो हमने ये नहीं कहा. सो एक फॉर एग्जांपल एक ये था कि many times startups start off in a way कि यार we are just learning on the go. हम सीखेंगे, हम
आइडिया अच्छा है फिर देख लेंगे. हाँ,
फिर देखेंगे ना क्या करना है. अगर इसका ये भी मतलब है कि यार बाजू वाली दुकान से लाइक लेट्स गेट समथिंग अभी सिर्फ डिलीवर करा दो और फिर इट्स विल स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द बाजू वाली दुकान, होप देन वी विल गो टू द होलसेलर, फिर हम डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर को पकड़ेंगे, फिर उसके बाद हम जाके कंपनीज के पास जाएंगे. एंड हमने डिसएग्री किया. हमने कहा कि यार हम लॉन्च कर रहे हैं, कॉन्सेप्ट अच्छा है, लेकिन हम लॉन्च नहीं करेंगे विदाउट हैविंग डायरेक्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स विद CPGs. तो वी विल गो एंड वी विल पिच द विजन एंड वी विल टेल देम कि यार दिस इज़ द फ्यूचर ऑफ डायरेक्ट टू कंज्यूमर. तो अगर आप सोल्ड हैं इस पे तो हमें काम आपके साथ करना है.
सो जस्ट टू कंफर्म, इसमें आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर मार्जिन्स को अब्जॉर्ब करें, लाइक हाउ डू यू, व्हाट्स द डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ बाजू वाली दुकान एंड यू डूइंग दीज कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स?
देखिए हमने ये कहा कि यार हमें ये कॉन्सेप्ट बेचना है. ये क्विक कॉमर्स है क्या भला? और क्विक कॉमर्स जो है फॉर अ कंपनी यू हैव टू थिंक फ्रॉम देयर पर्सपेक्टिव कि जी वो काम करते हैं तो वो क्या कर रहे हैं. उनके पास डिफरेंट चैनल्स हैं, वो होलसेल भी करते हैं, ठीक है, वो एंड जिसको आप जनरल ट्रेड कहते हैं किराने को भी वो प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं. दे हैव दिस ह्यूज आर्मी ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर पीपल गोइंग टू देम एंड पिचिंग के जी ये काम कर लो. देन दे हैव मॉडर्न ट्रेड, चाहे वो हम उसको जस्ट टू मेक इट ईजियर टू अंडरस्टैंड, वी हैव लार्ज चेन स्टोर्स जो कि हैं, कुछ इंटरनेशनल चेन्स हैं हमारे पास लाइक द लाइक्स ऑफ मेट्रो एंड कारफोर. देन वी हैव इंटरनेशनल लोकल स्टोर्स लाइक द लाइक्स ऑफ इम्तियाज़, अल फतेह, सो ऑन सो फोर्थ. ये भी इनका चैनल है, और दोनों चैनल्स में बहुत फ़र्क है कि क्या हो रहा है. एंड देन ई कॉमर्स इज़ अ सेपरेट चैनल, एंड देन विद इन ई कॉमर्स देर इज़ अ B2C चैनल एंड देर इज़ अ B2B चैनल. एंड वी सेड कि यार हमें लगता है कि यहाँ पे कोई एक्चुअली B2C कर नहीं रहा है. दिस इज़ एक्चुअली हाउ वी स्टार्टेड दिस होल जर्नी, कि जो B2C कर रहे हैं वो भी एक्चुअली पोटेंशियली ज़्यादा B2B कर रहे हैं. एंड आई थिंक आपके लोग ज़्यादा एरिया में बाहर निकलते नहीं, वरना उनको नज़र आ जाए कि ये कहाँ जा रहा है. तो वी आर नॉट हियर आउट टू कैनिबलाइज. दिस वॉज द होल पिच के अगर ये वर्क कर गई तो इंशाल्लाह दिस फॉर अस आवर बिजनेस मॉडल इज गोना वर्क. और हमने कहा कि ये इंक्रीमेंटैलिटी है. आप हमारा पिच ये होता था कि यार आप जनरल ट्रेड देख लें, यानी किरियाना देख लें, या आप सुपर स्टोर्स या आपके सुपर मार्केट्स एंड हाइपर मार्केट्स देख लें, 10:30-11 बजे इन द बेस्ट केस बंद हो रहे हैं. हमारे पास एक ऑफरिंग ऐसी है जो कि राउंड द क्लॉक है, 24 आवर्स है. एंड देर आर मैनी प्रोडक्ट्स जिनकी एक इमीडिएट नीड है, अर्जेंट रिप्लेनिशमेंट, डिस्ट्रेस परचेज, और वो उस वक्त चाहिए.
राइट.
सो एक ये चीज़ थी. जो दूसरी थी इंक्रीमेंटैलिटी की, वो ये थी कि एक्चुअली पाकिस्तान, ऑब्वियसली द इकोनॉमी इज ग्रोइंग जस्ट बाय वर्च्यू ऑफ पॉपुलेशन अलोन इफ नथिंग एल्स. साइज ऑफ द पाई ग्रो कर रहा है. पाई में कहाँ किस तरफ से स्प्लिट जाता है, ग्रो सबने करना है. लेकिन नज़र आ रहा है कि बिकॉज ऑफ द इकोनॉमी कुछ चीज़ें हो रही हैं जो कि कंज्यूमर बेस्ड डायनामिक्स हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मैनी कपल्स आर नाउ डुअल करियर कपल्स, and so you have the higher tier who like to experiment a lot. They might try you and stick. They might be like, we keep on still trying, so we won't stick and we'll try something else. या ये कि मैं घर का जो भी छोटू है या ड्राइवर है या जो भी एक सपोर्ट है उसको दौड़ा के यार, बिकॉज आई कैन अफोर्ड टू हैव दैट. देन देर इज़ दिस रियल अपर एंड मिडिल क्लास सेगमेंट जहाँ पे ये डुअल करियर कपल्स एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, एंड दे डू नॉट एन्जॉय ग्रोसरी लाइक देयर पेरेंट्स डिड. क्योंकि 15
or they don't have time. I mean, I love grocery. Yeah. It's the best time. I just don't have the time. I'm one of your most loyal customers, and वो सिर्फ इस वजह से बिकॉज हाँ ग्रोसरी पे जाना है, अच्छा बेगम को बोला अच्छा कल चले जाएंगे, परसों चले जाएंगे, तीसरे दिन फाइनली कहा यार ग्रोसरी पे नहीं टाइम मिल रहा और टिश्यू खत्म हो गया है, जस्ट कोयला मंगवाया मैंने उस दिन आप लोगों से. यार रात का 12:30 बज रहा था, सर्दियाँ खत्म होने वाली थी. वैसे ही मैंने बेगम को बोला, मैंने कहा यार बाहर बैठते हैं टेरेस पे बॉनफायर बना के. स्टूपिड सा आइडिया आया, ज़िंदगी में बड़ी दफ़ा आया है. पहली दफ़ा मैंने वैसे ही ट्राई किया, फूड पैंडा मार्ट पे जाके 5 किलो कोयला अवेलेबल था, मैंने मंगवा लिया और वी हैड अ ग्रेट ब्यूटीफुल इवनिंग बिकॉज ऑफ दैट.
That's great to know यार, that because it's not a typical shopping mission. और ये जो चीज़ है ना मुझे बहुत टच करती है कि when sometimes वो प्रेशर आता है कि यार ये वाली चीज़ इन्वेंट्री में होनी चाहिए भी, या थी या नहीं थी. तो when you hear there is validation
particularly for coal. You know why? Because all my life we've done a lot of barbecues. We used to love barbecues. So मैं अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ करता होता था. All our life हम बारबेक्यू करते थे. कोई एक दोस्त होता था जिसको पता होता था कि यार वो नुक्कर पे ना एक वो लक्कड़ के कोई बंदा है कहीं अंदर शेडी जगह पर, वहाँ से कोयला मिल जाता है. अगर वो लड़का अवेलेबल नहीं होता था तो फिर एक खप मच जाती थी. लिटरली वो जो आपके गंदे बॉयज़ नहीं तो चरसे प्रोक्योर कर रहे होते हैं, उस एक्सपीरियंस से ज़्यादा मुश्किल कोयला प्रोक्योर करना होता था. एंड I thought about this. I think it's an extremely smart product because अभी ये है कि यार, और मेरे दिमाग में पैंडामार्ट क्यों आया कि यार हर कुछ मिल जाता है, शायद ये भी मिल जाए. So I think it was very interesting and very well delivered by the way by your people as well.
That's great to know.
मुझे ये बताएं कि जब ये आपका आया था, I remember because I was talking to I spoke to your previous CEO as well and someone from your team. उस टाइम के ऊपर originally you were a platform and platform को expand करते हुए it made more sense कि यार I'm going to connect. मैं रेस्टोरेंट्स को कनेक्ट कर रहा हूँ, why don't I connect the Imtiazes and the D Watsons and the so on and so forth. Makes more sense. A lot of these bigger stores are also connected electronically, so it's fairly easy to just create an API and connect it and then just have my rider go in, buy it out and leave. And we could have had that future today where every store could have had a e-commerce counter similar to how restaurants now bigger ones. KFC का तो मुझे याद है, इन्होंने एक पूरा, so KFC had one F10 में dine in and take away. They've now created a dine in and F11 and F10 को उन्होंने सिर्फ और सिर्फ literally food panda KFC बना दी है क्योंकि उसके बाहर 30 बंदा food panda खड़ा होता है और वो सिर्फ delivery handle करता है. So it's changed the way that the even businesses think, right? But start हुआ था और जब early on start भी हुआ था तो it was, I remember 4-5-6 shops आ गई. Shops के अंदर 500 SKUs में से 10 SKUs होते थे और वो भी बड़े रैंडम होते थे. मैं बड़ा एक्साइटेड था and I never hopped on to that as well, and then over time I saw कि अच्छा जी suddenly Pandamart आ गया. And so my thought was कि either of the two could have happened. First, because these were smaller shops, उनका जो tech onboarding थी with so many SKUs was very difficult. Margins were very thin compared to food. So either it didn't make business case and so you decided to just go in and get into a capex heavy business altogether. दूसरा जो मुझे समझ आया वो मुझे ये समझ आया, आप गए, आपने देखा, आपने कहा ये तो बेहतरीन मार्केट है, वर्टिकली इंटीग्रेट करते हैं, and why don't we get a bigger slice of the pie? So what happened there?
That's a very interesting and excellent question. वो जो दूसरा मॉडल है, that is also not unsuccessful. Now we can just say कि probably there are levels of success that we had. I think आपके लिए थोड़ा सा ये इंटरेस्टिंग होगा शायद जाना कि APAC के अंदर बहुत सारी मार्केट्स ऐसी हैं जहाँ पे शॉप्स वाला मॉडल मार्ट के मॉडल से ज़्यादा सक्सेसफुल चल रहा है.
Right.
पाकिस्तान इज़ वन ऑफ द एक्सेप्शंस बट नॉट द ओनली एक्सेप्शन. फेजेस ऑफ लॉन्च का भी फ़र्क पड़ता है कि कौन पहले चल गया और किसने ट्रैक्शन गेन कर ली. आई थिंक
किसने वो यूजर एक्सपीरियंस बिल्ड कर दिया ना, लाइक मेरे दिमाग में शॉप्स, आई वाज एक्साइटेड फॉर शॉप्स, डिडंट वर्क आउट एंड सो नाउ आई एम ऑल अबाउट Pandamart. Could have been the other way around.
So just to put that context के so when I was joining, this was one of my biggest concerns कि ex-CEO Numan से मैंने कहा कि यार what do you want, like we really need to figure this thing out, right? कि like
this or that,
या ये कि at least under one helm, so that there is an overall strategy,
right.
Rather than two businesses which are in some sense internally competing against each other. ये तो मतलब मुझे नहीं समझ आ रही. And eventually after I would say probably around 7, 8, 9 months probably I did get it. And then we said कि यार इसको पूरा overhaul करने की ज़रूरत है, इसको as a concept. So there are certain obvious disadvantages that the shops model has जो कि कभी भी वो शायद उस तरीके से नहीं कर सकेगा. You rightly alluded to, आप अपना POS जो है हर रिटेलर के POS के साथ आप इंटीग्रेट नहीं कर सकते. इट इज़ जस्ट नॉट पॉसिबल. और उसके नतीजे में कंज्यूमर एक्सपीरियंस सफ़र करेगा रिलेटिवली, क्योंकि यू नीड ऑल दोज रिटेलर्स टू बाई इन टू द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ ऑनलाइन एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ देयर सेल्स के यार मैंने ई-कॉमर्स ग्रो करना है और मैंने फूड पांडा को सपोर्ट करना है. इसका मतलब है मैंने ये ख्याल करना है कि मेरी इन्वेंट्री सही रहे और जो इनके पास रिफ्लेक्ट कर रही है वो उससे मैच करे. और हमने कभी आज से टेक्निकली इन्वेंट्री मांगी नहीं है, हमने सिर्फ ये कहा है कि भाई है या नहीं है. एंड अ सिंपल API रिफ्रेशेबल फाइल के भाई एटलीस्ट हर 2 से 3 घंटे बाद आई नीड टू नो कि SKU है या नहीं है, बेस्ड ऑन जो भी आपने अपना सेफ्टी स्टॉक या बफर रखा है. ये ना करो कि इट रन्स आउट and then the phone call has to go okay sorry baji. That's bad. Some retailers are good there than others. A lot of them are not as good क्योंकि उनके लिए ये उतना serious channel नहीं बन सका.
Right.
So this is one inherent problem. This is some battle that we have on a day basis कि यार आप इसको serious लें.
Right.
हम ये battle ले क्यों रहे हैं? Like why do we still have that battle? Is for 2 reasons. Number 1, अगर कोई सीरियस होता है तो टेक्निकली वो जितने SKUs लिस्ट करवा सकते हैं वो कभी Pandamart पे नहीं होंगे, बिकॉज वी आर ओनली गोइंग टू ऑलवेज कीप द मोस्ट फास्टेस्ट मूविंग प्रोडक्ट. इट्स अ इन्वेंट्री हैवी बिजनेस, तो उतनी रेंज ऑफर नहीं कर सकेंगे जो कि एक अगर शॉप्स वाला सीरियस तरीके से एक रिटेलर जो भी हमारे कुछ पार्टनर्स करते हैं तो दे हैव अ रेंज दैट Pandamart समटाइम्स डज नॉट हैव. So that's one thing. The second thing is कि उस रेंज के अलावा there is a pricing element. Because जो ऑपरेशन हम रन कर रहे हैं in many cases we match, but in some cases SKU price level पर we are expensive. We always strongly felt consumer के पास choice होनी चाहिए कि यार if that's an affordability seeking consumer, which is a completely totally okay thing for a marketplace to strive for, तो उसको choice होनी चाहिए. They should not feel कि they are trying to shove their particular concept down our throat. And इट कीप्स द Pandamart guys on their feet and in check कि अपने ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे प्राइस चेक हो रही है, बाहर तो छोड़ दो. तो वहाँ बाहर का तो प्राइस सर्वे और बेंचमार्किंग करनी ही थी, खुद भी यू गाइज लाइक अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पे द सेम SKUs अवेलेबल फॉर चीपर. सो गाइज वी नीड टू पिक आवर गेम अप. सो देयर आर मल्टीपल बेनिफिट्स ऑफ डूइंग दिस. लेकिन दे आर नॉट द रीजन ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ द बिजनेस. द रीजन ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस इज कि अगर ये जो भी रिटेलर्स हमको इस तरह सीरियसली ले लेते हैं, देयर इज वन अदर एलिमेंट. Sometimes Pandamart might not have something, but that might be available on a shop.
Right.
Why should I lose that customer to another platform while I can keep it still on that platform, right? Like I can sustain it. But the most important realization that we had was कि ये grocery business नहीं है shops. Shops cannot be just an e-grocery mechanism via marketplace. This is technically hyper-local mall at your fingertips. हमारे टिपिकल जो डिलीवरी रेडियाई होते हैं, रेडियसेस जो हैं वो 4 से 6 किलोमीटर होते हैं ऑन एवरेज. 4 से 6 किलोमीटर जो भी आपका लोकेशन पिन है, उसके अंदर कौन कौन सी सहूलियात हैं जो आपके घर के या जिस भी जगह है उसके करीब हैं जो हम आपको ऑफर कर सकें. एंड दिस इज़ द ट्रांजिशन वी हैव स्टार्टेड टू मेक. एंड दैट इज़ वाई वी स्टिल हैव अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉमिस फॉर दिस कि यार ग्रोसरी रखें, लेकिन ग्रोसरी इज़ नॉट द कोर. बिकॉज लाइक यू राइटली मैंशनड, एक चीज़ ऑलरेडी लो मार्जिन है. उस लो मार्जिन के अंदर आप किसी के साथ रेवेन्यू शेयरिंग या कमीशन बेसिस पे आते हैं, तो दैट मीन्स इट इज़ इवन मोर डिप्लीटेड. द इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज़ के हाउ डू यू अप द एंटे बाय सेइंग के और कौन कौन सी चीज़ें जो आपको पहले नहीं लगता था कि 1 घंटे में आपको ज़रूरत होगी, बट यू कैन हैव अ नीड फॉर देम, विच इंक्लूड्स फार्मेसी, which includes selective apparel, which includes के यार perfume, flower shops,
nicotine products, vapes वगैरह बड़े सारे
100%. And there are things that people need. तो हमने कहा कि यार ये वो categories हैं जिनको हमने build करना है ताकि एक proper mall at your fingertips बन सके.
अच्छा, सो अगर मैं इसमें फ्लिप करूँ, इसको बहुत सारे तरीक़ों से देखा जा सकता है, बट क्रेव मार्ट वाले साहब से पॉडकास्ट हुई थी. Great guy. I mean, one of the best we've had. Consumers loved it, considering everybody was out there. He came right at the thick of the airlift crisis, so everybody was out there to get the quick commerce folks. But when I spoke to him, he had a similar idea as well. You know, okay, really, the game is not in the groceries. उसमें margins थोड़े हैं, but when you get into apparel and perfumes and this and that, that's much bigger margins. And immediately वो आपका जो है ना वो cart size कहाँ से कहाँ ले जाता है, right? So suddenly the delivery seems fairly irrelevant when the cart size grows. But तो उसमें आप एक तो चले मुझे समझ आती है, आपने कहा यार शॉप्स को मैं मॉल बना दूँ, why not make Pandamart the mall? पहला क्वेश्चन तो ये आता है. दूसरा ये आता है कि अगेन विद द कोयले वाली एग्जांपल के is it more like a sure the faster way to get to a mall is use the shops, learn from their data, get the most recurring item into the mart, and that would make sense कि you know साथ साथ दोनों चीज़ें चल रही हैं, you learn and you grow. So how would you contextualize that?
So definitely there is a bit of number 2 going on, a lot of number 2 going on, because we need to know what really moves before we make a choice about कि यार इसको अब हमारी inventory का part होना चाहिए.
Right.
And shops is excellent for that. It's a very relatively low risk way of finding out कि यार what people are searching for, what are they going for, and if it's actually selling. और अगर हम इसको internalize करेंगे तो हम इसी experience को कितना अच्छा और बेहतर बना सकेंगे जब हम खुद हर चीज़ कंट्रोल करेंगे एंड टू एंड ऑपरेशन के अंदर. सो दैट देयर इज डेफिनेटली दैट. जो दूसरी चीज़ है वो ये है कि कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो शायद नीड के बावजूद हम नहीं रख सकें अपनी इन्वेंट्री में फॉर सम पर्टिकुलर रीजन. सो फॉर एग्जांपल साइज, volume, weight. We are still and that we're looking into how to potentially explore other avenues, but we are still by and large a 2-wheeler company. That is what we have mashallah mastered. I would like to say कि mashallah our operations and logistics team has done a great job. तो 2-wheeler के ऊपर there are only as many things that you can provide.
Right.
लेकिन जब वो shops पर होते हैं तो हमारे पास एक opportunity होती है कि आप हमारे through deliver कराएंगे या आप अपनी delivery करते हैं तो maybe a 4-wheeler will come along.
Right.
Shops is that way for also for us to also test कि beyond immediate gratification what works within same day but not within 1 hour.
Right.
तो कल को अगर आप लेट्स सपोज मास्टर मल्टी फॉर्म आप चाहते हैं तो मैं तो टू व्हीलर के ऊपर तो मैं नहीं कर सकता, लेकिन दे हैव दिस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर नेटवर्क.
I mean, so you got you want to be Amazon with Amazon Basics at the Pandamart and Amazon everything else on the shops.
Fairly accurate description.
Makes sense. मुझे एक और ये बात बताएं, एंड माज भाई काफ़ी देर खामोश है, I'm gonna move towards him as well, but मुझे ये बताएं कि आपने अर्ली ऑन मेंशन किया कि SKUs को ऐड करना, ये करना सीरियसनेस का एक मसला है. हाउ डू यू सी टू थिंग्स? फर्स्ट, जो बिगर रिटेलर है बाय एंड लार्ज वो तो पॉस को डिजिटाइज कर चुका हुआ है. ख़ासकर अगर मैं चलें ग्रोसरी से हटूँ भी, मैं अपैरल पे जाता हूँ तो अपैरल आज तक प्रॉपर्ली नहीं हुआ डिलीवरी के ऊपर. आज तक इट्स सो फैसिनेटिंग, अपैरल इज़ सच ए ह्यूज इंडस्ट्री कि आप गुल अहमद से कुछ ऑर्डर करें और वो आपको 2 दिन बाद 3 दिन बाद ही मिलता है. इट मेक्स नो सेंस टू मी कंसिडरिंग कि अगर मैं इस्लामाबाद में बैठा हुआ हूँ तो 10 स्टोर्स हैं उनके यहाँ पर. मुझे याद है मैंने एक परफ्यूम ऑर्डर किया फ्रॉम दिस ब्रांड, सम लोकल ब्रांड. उन्होंने मुझे कोई तकरीबन 12 घंटे बाद ला के दिया. सेंटोरा से 7 मिनट की ड्राइव भी नहीं है, तो उठाया 10 ला के दिया और उन्होंने बड़ा प्राउडली बोला कि सेम डे डिलीवरी बिकॉज आपका वो है. एंड दैट वुड हैव बीन वेरी ईजी, राइट? बिकॉज 10 फूड पैंडा का बंदा जो है वो 5th फ्लोर पे जाके खाना पिक करता है, वो 3रे फ्लोर से जाके मेरा परफ्यूम पिक करके मुझे ला के दे सकता था. उसके तो SKUs के ऊपर कॉल की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है. उसका तो सेंट्रलाइज्ड आपने पाकिस्तान लेवल पे जाके उनसे वो करना है, जहाँ जहाँ पे आपका फुटप्रिंट अवेलेबल है वहाँ पे अवेलेबिलिटी आ जाएगी. Why haven't shops grown as quickly as they should have? Maybe because now the digitization of the sort of inventory management system and all of that has been fairly good post COVID. But also, how do you see the bazaars and the retailers of the world जो कि e-commerce पे ला के sort of पिछले दिनों भी there was this company that came in who were PayMob वाले हैं जो कि POS integrate कर रहे हैं. So a lot of this digitization is happening, right? And so suddenly 2020 में the entire process was you are going to go in and you're going to get a dumb customer and you're going to tell him, listen, here's the beautiful world of digital and we're going to do this for you. Now you really have to plug in the last mile element and everything else is being done by some other partner. And the scale can be much less costly compared to what it was in 2020. So how do you see that?
Yeah, इसमें I think 2 चीज़ें. The first is every particular brand's e-commerce strategy. I think there are a lot of people who have jobs which hinge on them selling a dream that they can totally execute this on their own themselves, which is perfectly fine. क्यों नहीं? Why not end every part of the chain yourself? Maybe you will command better margin. ठीक है ना? So I think there's a bit of that going on, and especially I feel with a lot of apparel brands, it has been the case that they have been wanting to own this completely end to end as an entire platform, and they have run into challenges. Some have run into challenges around last mile delivery execution, some purely customer acquisition or the cost of it.
So I mean, it's but personally I don't think that works. I think optimization is always going to be king, and फिर वही वाली बात है कि it's a matter of time then.
It's a matter of time, but then there is another argument to be made where I understand where they're coming from is, and I have no hesitation in bringing it out is कि my brand, which is somewhat premium, if not fully premium, on foodpanda, why would I have clothes on foodpanda? And I think there's a lot of that going on as well. Because for a lot of them, it's like, nahi, it's not about not wanting to associate with foodpanda as a company, but as a brand, how does this tally?
Yeah.
How do we figure into the scheme of things? And to be fair to them, I understand where they're coming from because they did not see us coming out of that food delivery space the way we did, and the plethora of things that we are doing right now. So I get it. I do think over a period of time उनको समझ में आने लगती है कि यार नहीं ये करना पड़ेगा, and there's a little bit of who blinks first. अच्छा, oh, they are doing it, so then let's do it.
So
there's a bit of transition also. They have this thing called PandaGo, which is one of the businesses that I particularly love because it started off as logistics as a service. Now we call it deliver anything, and essentially even today it is about okay, हमारा कस्टमर नहीं है, you be at ease, आप चलाओ अपना काम, आपको सिर्फ राइडर चाहिए ना लास्ट.
हाँ, बिकॉज माई क्वेश्चन वाज कि यार चलें ठीक है, एक तो आपके ऐप पे कुछ अवेलेबल है, मैं अगर उनके स्टोर से भी ऑर्डर कर रहा हूँ, व्हाई कांट दे यूटिलाइज योर entire army of last mile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So wo, I think that has now started to become a great entry point. So hota ye hai कि once you're sold on that, then it naturally becomes के delivery अच्छी चल रही है, मज़ा आ रहा है, कस्टमर लाने में मुश्किल हो रही है, शॉप्स पे लिस्ट करें क्या, so
it just becomes another channel then.
Correct.
It's not no longer a question mark of, oh my god, we're doing this huge thing. Yeah. Interesting. माज भाई मुझे ज़रा बताइएगा थोड़ा सा, and I want to circle back a little bit. Food Panda now, जब हम देखते हैं इसको तो एक बहुत बड़ा giant feel होता है with the Hasan ads and the 3D panda roaming around. But obviously back in the day, and I remember before Food Panda there was Eatoy, right? And it was always like, ये क्या लड़के बच्चे क्या बेवकूफ़ वाली हरकतें कर रहे हैं. And then somehow that's become this huge conglomerate at this point in time, at least in terms of perception. If I were to ask you the financials of it, कि जब वो स्टार्टअप था वो किस तरह से था, अब किस तरह से है, how has it grown, and really now with the way that the world has evolved and learned post 2020 frenzy, how do you see startup financing and you know किस तरह से बिजनेस चलता है स्टार्टअप्स का, और अगर कोई दूसरा भी स्टार्टअप देख रहा हो आपको तो उसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में.
So I think I joined back in the day 2018. 2018 was the year when I think we really did not take off by then because things started happening later. I remember वही एक छोटा सा ऑफिस था, लिमिटेड लोग होते थे, वहीं यूसी ऑफिस में कॉल सेंटर स्टाफ भी उसी ऑफिस में, सारे स्टाफ इसी ऑफिस में, एंड वी वर बेसिकली more of an marketplace because we only had a very small segment of own delivery, 150-200 riders max. उसके बाद फिर हुआ ये कि 2019 came in. So हमने what has happened is that everything has happened in one step at a time. So 2019 was all focused around creating our own rider base, right? And sort of penetrating into more cities. Rider base अपना पूरा हमने खड़ा किया क्योंकि we wanted to move away from just being a delivery, just being a marketplace to sort of providing the last mile delivery, because we felt that with providing the last mile delivery we'll have more control over the experience that we can provide the consumer. और हमने उसी तरीके से उसे किया. So I remember from 150 rider to I think right now with around everyday active 10-15 हज़ार rider से ऊपर ही हमारी, it's even more than that. So फिर उसके बाद हमने रेस्टोरेंट्स को मूव करना शुरू किया. हमने कहा कि आप हमारी डिलीवरी पे आएँ, वो सारी चीज़ें हुई, सब कुछ हुई. 2020 we saw COVID hitting us. Fortunately, I think it was not actually planned, but I think yes, we wanted to move it to that direction. But with COVID, what has happened is कि उसने हमें बहुत accelerate कर दिया. And we were like, before COVID started, we were ready with our delivery arm. So that sort of gave us that, you know, that last mile delivery opportunity to provide and so forth. So फिर 2020 में हमने फिर slowly gradually हमने shops को, you remember 2020 peak COVID के टाइम पे Food Panda started showing shops, आपके nearby shops भी आना शुरू हो गए, वो सारी availability मिल गई. And then with Pandamart coming in, हमने कहा कि यार अपना retail and you know overall सारे SKUs वो सब करें. फिर 2020 was the year when we went into dark kitchens, which is the ghost kitchens that we have. And then उसके बाद I think we have been opening verticals after verticals, and aim बहुत simple है, convenience provide करना है and with the last mile delivery services, right? So मतलब convenience उसी वक्त हो सकेगी कि जब अगर आपने परफ्यूम ऑर्डर किया है तो वो कन्वीनियंस उस वक्त होती है अगर 45 मिनट्स में या 1 आवर में आपके पास वो आ जाती है. एंड दैट्स द आइडिया. तो हमने वी हैव गॉन इनटू ओपनिंग वेरियस वर्टिकल्स, एंड इट्स नो लॉन्गर, द नेम can be a bit confusing, but it's no longer just Food Panda. I think there are multiple things that we are doing. On the financial side of things, so I came from मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंसर्न बहुत ही ऑर्थोडॉक्स कंपनी से, जहाँ पे ROI का बहुत सवाल होता है, जहाँ पे आपको नीचे प्रॉफिट दिखना ज़रूरी है, लाइक that's how and that's how you feel, that's how finance works as well, right? मतलब आप बोलते हैं आप काम क्यों करते हैं, पैसा कमाने के लिए, right? That's basics. फूड पांडा आया तो वी वर बर्निंग मनी, उस वक्त तो मैंने कहा अच्छा यार वी आर बर्निंग मनी, ये इस तरीके से हम देखते हैं. बट देन व्हेन 2019 and 2020 came in, we started burning even more money. And I remember that is where, like, that is for me, I think fortunately that is where I learned e-commerce per se, that okay, दुनिया इससे आगे भी है. It's not about like your conventional businesses per se, but this is how the disruption model works. So काफ़ी, and एक आपके साथ होता ही है कि जब आप बहुत स्पीड में ग्रो कर रहे होते हैं, when you're growing so fast, your systems, your controls, they are not built in a way कि वो उस growth, उस mammoth growth को फ़ौरन ही support कर सके, फ़ौरन ही उस तरीके से handle कर सके. तो वो एक रेस अगेंस्ट टाइम, रेस अगेंस्ट योर ओन सेल्फ ही रहता है कि आपको सिस्टम बिल्ड करना है, प्रोसेसेस बिल्ड करना है, चीज़ें बिल्ड करनी है, सो दैट विद टाइम आप you need to stop the leakages that are there, and that the company is running faster than you and you're just trying to catch up and everything. I think we grew, alhamdulillah, we grew largely. I think large multinational conglomerate is something that is there, but I think if you'll come to our office, or generally the people who work there, the culture that we've been able to still maintain is that startup culture, because that is something that we built, that culture, and that is something we love about it. So like that is something that we want to keep. On the financial side, yes, I have seen a lot of I have seen some very red numbers, which as over time now they became yellow, and now they're like going towards the greens as well. So I think on the financial side, operationally we are doing well, alhamdulillah, and I think we are on the right trajectory per se, from a numbers perspective, from a business perspective.
इस टाइम के ऊपर अगर आपको पैसे पंप ना करने पड़े, like do you still have to massively pump money in, or is that exclusively for growth only?
So that is something, again, that depends on us, like as in, do we feel that the pie that we have right now is the right representation of the country we are in? I think absolutely not. It's like I think the pie is even bigger. From that context, we are always focused on sort of bringing in that growth, right? It won't be as crazy as the COVID times, right? But growth abhi bhi aayegi aur aana chahiye, because abhi bhi there's still a long way to go.
Right.
So I think the only money pumping that we right now do is around creating more and more growth. From an operational perspective, I think we are fine. It's not something that we need to in order to sustain per se.
If I were to ask you numbers, do you have any that you can share about the total number of, let's say, the riders on the platform, on average जो daily active होते हैं, on the number of orders, let's say, on Pandamart, या कुछ, give me some numbers just to understand what's happening.
So I think numbers, on the number side, I think I'll have to be very cautious, but I think yes, there are certain numbers that on the rider side, for example, we generally have a fleet of around 35,000 riders, and everyday active riders hover around 15 to 20,000 in general.
Right.
ये हमारी, and we are operational in 35 cities. So obviously KLIR में सबसे ज़्यादा बेस है, and then उसके बाद वो tier 2 cities में, tier 3 cities में जाता है.
And जो Pandamart है वो कितने शहरों में जा चुका है?
So right now we are in 4 cities now, actually 3. Islamabad and Pindi is one, right? So Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad.
We are in Hyderabad as well.
Yeah.
And if you would want to count Wakand as a separate city, then that's another one. So well, let's say 5.
चले, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
मुझे एक ये बात बताएं, आपकी जो engineering है of the product, the app itself, वो पाकिस्तान में होती है या वो globally जो है वही आती है पाकिस्तान में?
Product is something जो कि basically centrally होता है, लीड हम अपने रिक्वायरमेंट्स और रिक्वेस्ट लोकल फीचर्स रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं एंड देन बेस्ड ऑन हाउ वेल वी आर एबल टू मेक दैट केस तो उसके ऊपर प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट एक्सपेडाइट होती है. टिपिकली देयर आर मल्टीपल रीजंस दैट गेट्स एक्सपेडाइटेड. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर कोई कंट्रोल रिस्क होता है तो फिर एक चीज़ एक्सपेडाइट हो सकती है. GMV अलोन के अंदर तो बिकॉज ऑफ यूरो वो हम नहीं कर पाते, लेकिन देर आर सर्टन थिंग्स कि जब उनको एहसास होता है कि यार दे वांट टू डू समथिंग एंड इट मेक्स सेंस सो दे एक्सपेडाइट थिंग्स टुवर्ड्स दैट. छोटी सी फॉर एग्जांपल है कि अब लाइक वन ऑफ द थिंग्स इन द वर्क्स इज के जी प्रिस्क्रिप्शन अपलोड कर सकें क्योंकि फार्मेसी करनी है. So there is right now no such feature available, but it is going to happen because we are like, yeah, this seems to be very interesting for us to enter. And
pharmacy Pandamart के ambit में ही
तो shops पे तो है, लेकिन अब Pandamart पे भी in a very prudent way we're going to start doing that.
Interesting. And pharmacy has that issue with the licensing and the
So that was already sorted. Otherwise we would not have gotten clearance. तो हमारा जो legal और हमारा जो compliance function है
उन्होंने सारा पहले sort out किया है.
sort out किया. हम तो I think we have been wanting to do it for the last 5 months or so. I think कि उसके बाद जब when we felt we were ready, you know, ये सारी चीज़ें I think that is the beauty of also being structured and not just being a pure startup. Same thing applies to exports etc as well. तो जो भी requisite licenses हैं उसके बाद ही फिर हम.
And we're looking at within 60-minute pharmaceutical deliveries.
Correct.
So what happens to all of the other pharmacy e-commerce startups raising so much money and delivering in 48 hours?
Well,
but anyway, I'll leave that as a question to the viewer. But मुझे ये बताइए, so एक तो product development है, and that's basically the hardcore app itself and a feature that comes in. But then there are in a lot of ways within the ecosystem of the app, there are certain, let's say, user journeys that are mapped out, right? One of the things that I found in Pakistan to be missing when it comes to the digital ecosystem. Recently I was in Dubai and Dubai में वो मगरमच्छ की तरह चल रहे हैं. Or in a lot of ways the platform itself is irrelevant. Like YouTube as a platform to where you can upload videos and the other person can see it is no longer that. YouTube का core is the engine, the recommendation engine, where you basically last time मैंने food panda मुंतका से भी ये सवाल पूछा था कि you know थोड़ा मुझे उस टाइम से अब तक नज़र आना शुरू हुआ है कि वो एक अपीयर हो जाता है और वो कुछ उस तरह से हैक करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. बट बाय एंड लार्ज we don't see profiling on a very extensive level where एक यूज़र आता है तो उसकी एक पूरी जर्नी मैप हुई भी हो, लेट्स से कि यार so it's very automated, right? कि वो आता है, अगर वो आके ये कर रहा है तो then he is most likely to do ये and therefore you can recommend him much better stuff. Even अगर मैं Pandamart की बात करूँ, the basics are there, it's clean, but it's still for most part the same experience again and again and again. Whereas let's say if I was to go to Walmart, they would know कि यार चेकआउट के वक्त मैं ये 4 चीज़ें खरीदता हूँ तो मैं ये इसको रख दूँ and you know so you have the opportunity to utilize data and do so many interesting things with it. And I'm not even talking about raffles and you know discounts and whatever. I'm talking about hardcore कि मैं जब Pandamart पे जाता हूँ for one specific thing, can I be sold 3 extra things just because I like a late night chocolate snack? You know, so why don't we see a lot of that, and do you have that capability in house?
That is a very fair question. तो पहला इसका जवाब है कि this is already in the works, but we also have to put into context कि ये overall company क्या है. ये पूरी दुनिया में भी एक पहले फूड डिलीवरी कंपनी थी,
राइट.
और जो क्विक कॉमर्स की जर्नी है वो पाकिस्तानी के लिए 2020 में शुरू नहीं हुई, ओवरऑल भी 2018 के एंड में शुरू हुई,
राइट.
So you were actually looking at food people who were starting a grocery business and maturing along the way, thinking that there's a lot that we don't understand about it and we need to start getting professionals who tell us what needs to be done.
Right.
And I think that evolution has happened not just for Pakistan but for multiple countries. So that includes our central, Berlin office as well. So now they recognize this, and they recognize this for another reason. तो एक है customer profiling और journeys, फिर उनकी local customization और adaptation, and then उसका link with what actually can help make this business stick in terms of profitability, whereby you help that D2C angle be extended to brands for audience targeting in the right way. So this has started to pan out also because everyone understands कि ad rev अगर चाहिए आपको तो ये करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि और तरीका at the end of the day you have only as many banners and swim lanes and you push notifications to give. What else do you do? Where you come in is to say कि हम एक बास्केट को आइडेंटिफाई करें और ये देखें कि मुजम्मिल के घर में फॉर एग्जांपल बेबी डाइपर्स जा रहे हैं एंड देयर इज़ दिस पर्टिकुलर ब्रांड विच सेज कि अगर डाइपर्स जा रहे हैं तो इनको डेफिनेटली इन्फेंट फार्मूला भी चाहिए होना चाहिए, इनको पोटेंशियली बेबी रैश भी चाहिए, एंड व्हाट आर वी डूइंग अबाउट दिस? सो दिस इज ऑलरेडी इन द वर्क्स
एंड उसमें आप फिर सॉर्ट ऑफ हाइपर ऑप्टिमाइज्ड अभी आपका ये ना हियर इज अ 30% डिस्काउंट ऑन एवरीथिंग, आप हाइपर ऑप्टिमाइज करते हैं कि यार इस कंज्यूमर को मैं पक्का करने के लिए इस पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट के ऊपर 15% ऑफ दे करके ये रिटर्न निकलवा सकता हूँ. तो
करेक्ट. सो दिस इज हैपनिंग. द ओनली थिंग इज कि उसके पीछे पूरा प्रोडक्ट इंजन भी रेवोल्यूशनाइज करना पड़ा है. सो इट वाज ओनली आई वुड से परहैप्स अराउंड 12-15 months back that quick commerce got its dedicated product team.
Right.
कि यार
but that team is in Pakistan or globally?
So no, they are based globally.
So that's my curiosity is would the global team have the context of what's happening in Pakistan and can they create those journeys culturally contextualized way?
Correct. So the great thing about what I've loved about it is one of the things that we also learned is if you want strategy well executed, it is going to be followed by incentive to drive that behavior and structure, even more importantly. So globally at the Berlin level, what is interesting is that the product senior person, उसके नीचे brand भी है और उसके नीचे customer experience भी है. And then they map out कि यार all these tribes are going to get in touch with respective countries to understand what they need.
Right.
So what that means is कि वो सिर्फ प्रोडक्ट के लिए काम नहीं करेंगे, वो ब्रांड को जानते हुए परफॉर्मेंस के लिए भी काम करेंगे. फॉर एग्जांपल CRM लाइफ साइकिल या जो आपकी लाइफ साइकिल जर्नीज इन पाकिस्तान, दे विल वर्क वेरी डिफरेंट बिकॉज यहाँ पे सैली नहीं है, यहाँ पे मायरा या जुलेखा है, आई डोंट नो. So that is already happening. They are asking us for inputs and I think we are going to see a manifestation of that very shortly. We do it already, लेकिन कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी हैं कि जो कि जर्नी में आपको नज़र नहीं आती. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल मोस्ट पीपल ऐड थिंग्स टू कार्ट बाय सर्च और बाय गोइंग इनटू कैटेगरी. आप कैटेगरी में जाते हैं, आप एक चीज़ ऐड करते हैं, आपके कार्ट में ऐड हो जाती है. अगर आप सिर्फ डबल क्लिक करके SKU के अपने डिस्क्रिप्शन में जाएं, you will see customers also bought. So the recommendation engine is there. And now we're saying it doesn't make sense because people don't double click. People are in a rush. We need to bring that customers also bought to the forefront, just like you see past orders or past purchases.
Right.
And then you don't only need to see them on the main page, you also need to see them at checkout. Checkout is the best point, like exactly as you mentioned. Ke yaar,
waiting in the line and suddenly
exactly. So this is already in the works. Right. It's just that अगर हम अपने लिए कहते हैं कि 18 फुट का ट्रेलर है और इसको चलाना है, तो आई कैन ओनली इमेजिन कि वो जो 70 कंट्रीज़ के अंदर जो प्रोडक्ट चला रहा है उसके लिए कितना मुश्किल है.
दैट मेक्स सेंस. माज़ी मुझे एक बात बताइएगा, करंटली आप पहले मैंने फाइनेंसिस की बात की, बट वो बाय एंड लार्ज एक रेगुलर आपने बोला कि इसमें हम हम ग्रो कर रहे हैं और हम देख रहे हैं कि ठीक है हम ऐसे ऐसे करके ग्रो कर लेंगे. एक इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टमेंट क्लाइमेट चेंज हुआ पाकिस्तान में, जैसे हालात ख़राब हुए हैं, उसको आप किस तरह देख रहे हैं? बिकॉज दैट्स रियली गोइंग टू स्टार्ट हैम्परिंग the buying power in the coming months and that problem is going to aggressively increase. और इसके अंदर मैं प्रॉब्ली इसको मैं मल्टी लेयर करूँगा कि आप एक ही में मुझे गो में कर दें. देखिए इसमें दो एंड्स पे प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही हैं. एक एंड पे प्रोडक्ट इसके यूज़ महंगे होंगे और जो बाइंग पावर है वो डिक्रीज़ कर रही होगी, एंड उसी के अंदर दरमियान में फ्यूल प्राइसेस जो हैं वो कंटिन्यूसली ग्रो करती रहेंगी, और वो जब ग्रो कर रही हैं तो उसमें आपकी डायरेक्ट ऑपरेशनल कॉस्ट है. तो हाउ डू यू सी ऑल ऑफ दैट देन इम्पैक्टिंग योर बॉटम लाइन? एक तो आपकी है ना कि मैंने ग्रो करना है, 4 शहरों से 5 शहरों से मैंने 15 पे जाना है विद पैंडामार्ट. बट देन मैं तो कह रहा हूँ करंट बिजनेस को भी शायद 4 दफ़ा सोचना शुरू कर दे. लाइक आई एम कंफर्टेबल, सो आई एम लाइक यार फारिग हूँ तो मैं वो कर दूँ, लेकिन थोड़ा सा जब मुझे सर पे पड़ेगी ना तो मैं फिर एक तो मैं स्विच भी आजकल बंद कर रहा हूँ और AC भी बंद कर रहा हूँ और सारा कुछ जो कि लाइफ स्टाइल छोड़ दिया हुआ था. बट उसी के साथ साथ फिर मैं ये भी सोच रहा हूँ कि यार अच्छा ठीक है, जुमा बाज़ार जाते हैं और सब्जियाँ जो हफ्ते की इकट्ठी ले आते हैं. सडनली दैट्स टेकिंग अवे फ्रॉम माई पैंडामार्ट बिहेवियर एंड टेकिंग इट टू a lot of the old school conventional style. So how do you expect to maneuver through that situation?
So I think it's a very valid question, and especially not just like पहले तो ग्लोबल फुटप्रिंट या ग्लोबल इन्वायरमेंट को इन जनरल देख लें, आई थिंक वहाँ भी there's this like inflation, recession, ये सारे elements they are kicking in. And then उसके बाद जब हम पाकिस्तान की बात करते हैं तो वहाँ पे भी हम जो देख रहे हैं with the fuel prices going up by good, I think in the last few months by good 50 odd %, and then the inflation sort of striking at such high numbers. So it is a challenge. I won't say that it's not a challenge. Everything is fine. Every business is facing those challenges, so we are no exception. We are also facing it. हमने सिर्फ किया क्या है कि वक्त के साथ साथ सो पहली चीज़ जैसे मैंने पहले भी एक बात की कि द पाई दैट वी करंटली होल्ड जो हमारे पास है वो अभी भी इट्स नॉट दी सॉर्ट ऑफ राइट रिप्रेजेंटेशन. अभी भी आई थिंक उस पर ग्रोथ के बहुत अभी भी उसके वी हैव दैट पोटेंशियल ऑफ ग्रोइंग. तो दैट इज़ समथिंग गुड फॉर अस इन अ वे इफ यू वुड हैव सॉर्ट ऑफ टारगेटेड और कंप्लीटेड दैट टारगेट मार्केट तो हमारे लिए फिर ये प्रॉब्लम होती है कि नंबर हमारे श्रिंक होना शुरू हो जाते हैं. हमारे लिए ये कि अभी भी ग्रोथ इज़ समथिंग दैट वी कैन फोरसी. देयर आर स्टिल क्लासेस दैट देयर आर स्टिल पीपल हु आर नॉट यूजर्स एंड वी आर ट्राइंग टू ब्रिंग देम एज अ यूज़र फॉर अस. जो सेकंड चीज़ है जो एक ओवरऑल द इन्फ्लेशन एवरीथिंग दैट्स किकिंग इन, उसमें हमने फिर ये किया है कि देखें हमने डिफरेंट वर्टिकल्स खोले हुए हैं. हमने जैसे पांडामार्ट में वी अंडरस्टैंड B2C can get impacted, but we have also ventured into the B2B part of it as well. जहाँ पे we are like यार we can provide the raw materials to restaurants, to companies, and we can make money from that as well, and that's going to eventually improve my top line per se. On the food side what we have done is हमने थोड़ा सा होम शेफ़ जो है जो लास्ट टाइम मुंतका ने बताया था हम उसको और बड़ा करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं बिकॉज दैट इज़ वेयर सॉर्ट ऑफ द पर्सन गेट्स अगर कोई प्राइस पॉइंट के लिए आ रहा है तो वो प्राइस पॉइंट देख ले और उन्हें एज़ कम्पेयर टू अ नॉर्मल रेस्टोरेंट ही विल बी एबल टू गेट अ चीपर फूड फ्रॉम होम शेफ़. फिर उसके बाद what we are also trying to do is we are venturing into the digital side of the world as well. So which is,
what do you mean by that?
So that is the fintech side of foodpanda as well. So we are now introducing that fintech like जहाँ पे हम we are trying to partner with a lot of companies on the digital side, and we are going to use the ecosystem that we have within foodpanda to get more and more business out of it. So yes, in the current scheme of things, the economical conditions are bad. The cost of doing business is growing, and then eventually the people are seeing a direct impact into their real income or the disposable income that they hold. तो हम यही कर रहे हैं कि we are trying to spread our sort of the businesses that we are in, increase sort of the footprints of all the businesses that we are trying to do, and I think usi mein hi even in the current scheme of things try to grow in the numbers because we feel that the target market that we have is still bigger than where we are currently operating right now.
How big is PandaGo at this point in time?
PandaGo.
I haven't seen a lot of that.
No, so PandaGo
B2B and aside back behind the scenes.
So PandaGo is just like your normal rider who'll be delivering.
No, but what I mean by I haven't seen a lot of that is I haven't personally, I've shopped a lot on websites, but I haven't seen an option, or maybe even not an option, ordering something and then getting it delivered by a Panda person. So अभी ये क्या early stages में है या क्या सीन है उसका?
हाँ, so I think this is another sort of a beauty of our company. We have multiple segments and हर segment अपने life cycle stage में अलग अलग level पे है. So I think when I talk about PandaGo in general, I think it's still in a that is a startup you can say. वो एक startup है जो हम उससे grow कर रहे हैं. I think we recently got some very big wins. I think I'll ask you to sort of order Sana Safinas and then you'll be surprised foodpanda rider bringing it to you, right?
Right.
फिर इसी तरीके से हमने ये किया है कि we have ventured with we have partnered with a lot of pharmacies as well, and then the list goes on. But abhi bhi this is more, it's still at I would say at an initiation stage per se. Market cap इसकी बहुत बड़ी है because providing that last mile service, that in itself is something that a lot of companies struggle with, and also unka forte bhi nahi hota. But for us, I think we feel that we have that ecosystem, we have that manpower with us, and hum usse use kar sakte hain to provide companies with that last mile service.
Makes sense. फ्यूल का आपने ओरिजिनली मुझे कहा था कि फ्यूल बढ़ा है एंड दैट इज़ गोइंग टू अफेक्ट. Are you looking at potential alternatives now? I know for a fact that Easy Bike is beginning to make these sort of battery swapping stations, and they have an interesting model. And Easy Bike is up north, but Karachi में भी I know there are a few players जो कि दराज and उन पे कर रहे हैं. तो have you explored that area?
So हमने इस पॉडकास्ट के स्टार्ट में बात कर रहे थे स्ट्रैटेजी के एक फंक्शन के बारे में. So we have a strategy function in foodpanda as well. So you're right, fuel in general, it's already quite expensive and is going to become more expensive as well. हमने so EVs are something that we have been testing out for I think good 1 year now. So हम pilots करते रहे हैं different partners के साथ. Right now we are in partnership with I think 4-5 partners where we have this option for our delivery riders that they can opt for an installment mechanism, और उसको हम इस तरीके से हम उसे easy installment बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं कि उनके पे आउट से small reductions हों और वो eventually इस cost को cover कर लें and so forth. इसका सबसे बड़ा मसला वही है जैसे आप कह रहे हैं कि because if you look at sort of the economical EV bikes that we have, उसके kilometer ranges they're quite small, like उनके distance ज़्यादा नहीं होता. तो हम उस पर भी अब हम जो देख रहे हैं what we are trying to explore is कि we have this network, right? So apart from riders, we have that network of Pandamarts, right, and across cities, and then we also have rider hubs where riders can come in and so forth. Then we have the dark kitchens. तो हम ये सोच रहे हैं कि क्या किन किन जगहों पे हम अपना पोटेंशियल एक तरीके से बैटरी स्वैपिंग स्टेशंस बना दें या वहाँ पे बैटरीज फुलफिल्ड करके रखें राइडर्स के लिए, एंड दे कैन जस्ट कम इन एंड स्वैप इट एंड देन कंटिन्यू विद द शिफ्ट. तो ऑब्वियसली ये भी चीज़ें एक्सप्लोर कर रहे हैं, बट आई थिंक वो वही है कि एज चीज़ें जैसे जैसे मुश्किल होती आती हैं आप फिर यू कम अप विद न्यू आइडियाज़ एंड न्यू वेज ऑफ सॉर्ट ऑफ डीलिंग विद इट. सो येस, वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स इन द पाइपलाइन बिकॉज राइडर के लिए भी इम्पॉर्टेंट है. सो फॉर एग्जांपल एक तो फ्यूल कॉस्ट है, बट देन देयर इज दिस राइजिंग इन्फ्लेशन एज वेल. तो इट्स नॉट जस्ट इंश्योरिंग दैट हिज फ्यूल कॉस्ट इज कवर्ड, बट इट्स ऑल्सो इंश्योर दैट हिज सॉर्ट ऑफ his lifestyle or that disposable income in real terms that he was getting maybe 6 months ago, उसको किस तरीके से हम balance out कर सकते हैं.
Makes sense. मुझे बताएं कि how do you compare the KLIR revenues versus a lot of these sort of second tier cities, Multan, Faisalabad, the newer markets that you're getting into within Pakistan?
So देखें, obviously every company begins with sort of the tier 1 cities, right? The population landscape की हम बात कर लें या SSCs की बात कर लें, वो आपको KLIR में बहुत different मिलेगी. But then when we started exploring new cities, for us it was a surprise as well that a lot of, we thought that it was more of it is a tier 2 city, but I think the RPO sort of it generates is better than a lot of zones in the tier 1 cities per se. Second, आपकी वही वाली चीज़ है कि देखें, सो फॉर टियर ए सिटीज़ ऑप्शंस भी बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. फॉर टियर 2 सिटीज़ ऑप्शंस थोड़े से लिमिटेड हो जाते हैं. तो हमारी कोशिश भी यही है कि हम टियर 2 सिटीज़ में भी हम उसी तरीके से पेनिट्रेट कर सकें, उसी तरीके से हम प्रोवाइड कर सकें सर्विसेज और सारी चीज़ें. एंड माशाल्लाह वी हैव most of the tier 2 cities with us, and they're doing quite well. On the basket size, या जैसे हम बोलते हैं एक तरीके से जो फ्रॉम अ लेमैन पर्सपेक्टिव के ऑर्डर साइज़ कह लें, या उसमें ऑब्वियसली डिफरेंस होता है. टियर ए का इज़ जनरली हायर एज़ कम्पेयर टू टियर 2 cities, but even in the tier 2 cities I think Sialkot is one of them, मुल्तान, फिर उसके बाद वाकंड एंड ऑल these are such cities जहाँ पे बास्केट साइज इज इक्वलेंट टू कराची और लाहौर
And in terms of user experience or user onboarding, what have you found? Because zahir hai ke a lot of these cities have, for them this is a newer experience कि यार मैंने डिलीवरी करवा के घर बुला लेना है. उनका तो अभी वो जनरली मार्केट्स इतनी मैच्योर नहीं हुई थी जहाँ पर जो है वो एक तो रेस्टोरेंट्स उतने नहीं होंगे आई एम श्योर जिनको आप ऑन बोर्ड कर सकते हैं. फिर उसके बाद जो है द आइडिया दैट अ कंज्यूमर इज़ एबल टू मूव. एक होता है ना कि पहले टाइम के ऊपर बाहर जाके खाना वाज अ वेरी वो थिंग, डजेंट मैटर कितना पैसा है, वो एक हमारा कल्चर ही ऐसा था कि महीने में एक दफ़ा जाएंगे. फिर वो आइसिस दैट बिकेम अ थिंग अर्बन पर्टिकुलरली अगेन मेजर सिटीज़ के अंदर. छोटों में शायद वो ना हो. दिस इज़ माई इट इज़ नॉट अ डेटा बैक्ड एनी थिंग, दिस इज जस्ट माई थाट प्रोसेस. मेरा बबल वो ये कह रहा है. सो व्हाट्स द एक्सपीरियंस लाइक इन दीज सिटीज़?
अच्छा देखें इसमें भी ना, सो इट्स इम्पॉर्टेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ द कंज्यूमर दैट वी आर टारगेटिंग, राइट. सो अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स मेरी अक्सर मीटिंग्स हो रही होती है सीनियर बैंकर्स के साथ और बाकी. So they'll be like, I don't have a foodpanda app installed on my phone, but आपका राइडर 3 दफ़ा मेरे घर पे आता है, right? So it's basically the generation sort of that we are targeting is the younger lot, right? It's the teenagers and with that, with how this this social media penetration and everything that has kicked in, I think even in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, the young generation, they have that idea. They are privy to, like, you know, okay, how the delivery apps work, how everything. Like आप छोटी सी example ले लें, the content creators that we have, like even in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, they're doing great work. So I think this internet world has given us that sort of access where the younger lot understands that, okay, you know, this is a convenience model that we can use to our benefit, and they are using it. And I think यही होता है कि हमारी कोशिश यही होती है, और हमने देखा भी है उन टियर 2 सिटीज़ में जहाँ यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं, हॉस्टल्स हैं, वहाँ पे इट्स लाइक, यू नो, इट्स अ वेरी डिफरेंट बॉल गेम. ऑर्डर्स, ट्रैक्शन, मतलब हम प्लग करते हैं बिफोर वी डू एनी बिग कैंपेन्स और बिग मार्केटिंग पर से. वी सॉ दैट, यू नो, द ऑर्डर्स स्टार्टेड कमिंग इन, द पीपल हैड द नो अबाउट इट of it as well, and they were using foodpanda from the starting day.
Makes sense. इबाद, अगर मैं इसी सवाल को एक्सपैंड करूँ और मैं ग्लोबल उस पर लेकर आऊँ, what's in it for delivery hero? Because if I were to go to, let's say, Dubai or the Middle East, anywhere in the Middle East, the margins are just absolutely nuts, right? वो एक मैं वहाँ पर करीम ऐप यूज़ कर रहा था, कंपटीटर है आपका, सॉरी, लेकिन करीम यहाँ पे फूड नहीं करता, तो चलें खैर है. तो वहाँ पर मैं करीम फूड मैंने डिलीवर करवाया. मेरा एवरेज ऑर्डर जो होता था ना, वो मैं बेचारा सबसे सस्ता बर्गर भी ऑर्डर करूँगा, वो भी करूँ, तो वो 50 से 75 दिरहम तो कहीं नहीं है, राइट. विच बेसिकली, और एक डिलीवरी की फ़ी होती थी, वो होती थी कोई तकरीबन 10 दिरहम, विच इज़ 750 रुपीज़. कांट इवन इमेजिन कम्पीट विद दैट. यहाँ तो 60 रुपये से ऊपर जाती है तो अगला कहता है यार क्या कर रहे हैं, क्यों था. जब मैं, और प्लेटफॉर्म के वो अलग कोई 2-3 दिरहम में भी ले लेते थे कि यार ये ज़रा, ये भी ज़रा यस करो, 5 थे. ऑन टॉप ऑफ 50 में से या 75 में से ज़ाहिर है वो एक परसेंटेज मार्जिन जो वो रख रहे हैं वर्सेस जो यहाँ पर है, इट्स ए ह्यूज डिफरेंस. फिर यहाँ की 10 खपें और अलग. सो व्हाट्स इन इट, और मैं इसको कॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज पर्टिकुलरली करूँगा with what's happening in the telecom industry right now in Pakistan. A lot of people aren't following it. They should definitely check out the tweets of the CEOs of different companies. कि वो एक प्राइस वॉर है, आरपूस जो हैं वो इस वक्त बिल्कुल ही डेड हो चुके हैं, हेवीली टैक्स इंडस्ट्री है. टेलीकॉम इज़ बीइंग स्क्वीज्ड टू डेथ राइट नाउ इन पाकिस्तान. और ये वो इंडस्ट्री जो वन ऑफ द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग, लाइक जिस टाइम पे आप यूनिवर्सिटी में था, आई एम श्योर आपको सुनने में आया होगा कि यार सब छोड़ तू टेलीकॉम में जा, राइट. जब वो इंडस्ट्री बन गई और वो हो गई, टुडे वी आर सीइंग अ वेरी डिफरेंट वो. एंड पाकिस्तान की इकोनॉमी में अनफॉर्चुनेटली इस तरह के मोमेंट्स बहुत ज़्यादा आते हैं. यही आप दुनिया में कहीं और चले जाएं तो वहाँ पर आपके लिए फॉर बिजनेस एनवायरनमेंट इज मच ईजियर टू सस्टेन. कंज्यूमर भी तो ईजी है, मार्जिन्स भी ज़्यादा हैं, बकेट साइज भी बड़ा है. सो व्हाट्स इन इट फॉर योर ग्लोबल प्लेयर?
आई थिंक इसके अंदर 2 चीज़ें. द फर्स्ट इज़ कि यार यू नो बैस्टियन ऑफ ग्रोथ कौन कौन सी मार्केट्स हैं. एंड इफ यू रियली लुक एट इट, मैच्योर मार्केट्स का एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. द फर्स्ट प्रॉब्लम दैट दे हैव इज़ कि उनको उतनी ग्रोथ नज़र नहीं आती. आई नो कि मैं एक बहुत ही शायद प्रॉब्ली सुपरफिशियल बात कर रहा हूँ. विद यू नो एवरीबडी डज दैट 220-240 मिलियन, एंड बट पार्ट ऑफ इट इज़ ट्रू, क्योंकि अगर आपको कोई चीज़ कैप्चर करनी है then you want to be in larger size markets. And if I talk about Delivery Hero, Pakistan is by far, from a population perspective, one of the largest markets they have globally. Because they are not operating out of North America, they are in LATAM, they are not operating out of China, India, they're not in Indonesia. So coming from there, Pakistan is a very, very interesting market for them. So that's one. The second thing is, to their surprise, adoption has been faster than many other markets.
Really?
Correct. And
was that because of COVID?
Partly, but not only. आई थिंक जो कुछ चीज़ें हमारी मार्केट के बारे में उनको इंटरेस्टिंग लगती है वो ये है कि कुछ बिहेवियर बहुत ज़्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग है. फॉर एग्जांपल थोड़ा सा सेगवे है पिछले क्वेश्चन के उसमें बीके जी, क्या सुपर ऐप बनने का लोगों को शौक होता है या इसके पीछे कोई पर्पस भी है? एंड द पर्पस इज़ दैट व्हेन पीपल आर ऑपरेटिंग ओनली ऑन वन वर्टिकल, फॉर एग्जांपल इफ दे ओनली ऑर्डर फूड, देयर इज़ अ रिलेटिवली लोअर स्विचिंग कॉस्ट. But when you hook them to your platform because they are a multi-category or a multi-vertical user, their chances to churn out reduce by 2/3. So if you've hooked someone and if you've gotten them early, and right now their basket sizes are lower because they have not entered the job market, just think like it's a proper play when they enter the job market, then definitely.
Of course, I mean जो आप जिस Gen Z को आप टारगेट कर रहे हैं उसका अभी तो मज़ा आना शुरू ही नहीं है ना. तो मज़ा तो आएगा जब वो सारे के सारे शादियां करेंगे और जो है वो बेगमात भी नौकरी कर रही होंगी और दोनों सुबह शाम फूड पैंडा ही कर रहे होंगे.
Correct. And so there's growth. There's this fact that it is a relatively uncontested market. Let's be honest about it.
Right.
When you look at the Europes of the world, obviously it's a bloody red ocean, which is not the case for Pakistan. So क्यों नहीं? Why not? And then think about it from another perspective. What's happening with our currency? There's not really much that they're losing in a sense, because mashallah we are doing well from a performance perspective. On top of that, if you look at investment coming in, that investment is not like a lot in comparison to what they might have to do in some other markets. So it is a great bet for them.
So the cost of doing business is low comparatively.
Yes.
Right. But then while that cost of business is low, as the currency depreciates, extraction becomes more expensive as well in the future, right? So एक तो वो element है. दूसरा ये कि बहुत लोग आके हमेशा ये बात करते हैं कि and it's true, जो आपकी बात है वो बिल्कुल दुरुस्त है. वो क्लिशेड बातें कि 240 की population है, ये है वो है. That notwithstanding, it's very important to zoom out and really begin to understand that inherently this is a consumption driven product, and as all societies all over the world will have consumption driven products. जब आप थोड़ा सा जूम आउट करके देख रहे होंगे कि यार ये 240 मिलियन की पॉपुलेशन ने XYZ पॉइंट तक पहुंचना है तब हम उसका डिविडेंड्स रीप कर सकते हैं, तो उसमें एक एलिमेंट ज़रूर ये होगा कि यार आपके कोर फंडामेंटल्स कैसे. हमारे अनफॉर्चुनेटली कोर फंडामेंटल्स बहुत आउट हैं, विच बेसिकली मीन्स दैट पाकिस्तान ईयर ऑन ईयर एक्चुअली लूजेज मनी इन द ग्लोबल स्केल then makes money. And so unless you're making money, your wealth overall of the country does not grow, and if the wealth doesn't grow, you don't increase the middle class and so on.
Yeah.
In that context, how do you see the future? And secondly, are you just a consumption driven product? या दरमियान में आपने कुछ देर पहले कुछ फेंका था नगेट मेरी तरफ के एक्सपोर्ट का कोई वर्ड यूज़ किया था. तो हैव यू डैबल्ड इनटू अदर एरियाज एज़ वेल?
यार तो देखें, जो पहली बात है वो तो हम there's not much that we as a country leadership team can do. मतलब we're trying to do our best. You're absolutely right कि
मतलब जो कार्ड्स आपको मिले आप उससे खेल सकते हैं.
मगर जो एक चीज़ पाकिस्तान के बारे में ट्रू है, and that makes us very proud internally within our universe, is we are one of the innovation labs for Delivery Hero for certain businesses, especially Q-commerce. And why I say that is कि हमने तो इस तरह देखा है कि यार जितनी ज़्यादा कंस्ट्रेंट होती है जब प्रॉपर क्रिएटिविटी अनलीश होती है, like this is not कि वो जो think out of the box नहीं है, it's just about thinking amidst new boxes when pushed against a wall.
Right.
And वहाँ पे there are a few things that we are doing that no other market has done. Classic example being Maz बात कर रहे थे B2B, something I'm personally very proud of, and very close to my heart. Why? Because it was a platform play. Why? Typical restaurant discussions, time for renegotiation of yearly contract, let's talk commissions. Difficult conversation, especially in this period. Then you come in and you say, let's not do this. Let me not just be an account or a sales manager. Let me be a consultant to your business. Let me help you lower your cost of operation. मगर आपने एक चीज़ कमिट करनी होगी. अगर मैं आपकी कॉस्ट लो करता हूँ, सारा का सारा अपने पास नहीं रखना, कंज्यूमर को भी पास ऑन करना. The platform has to remain affordable. And that is, वो जो cliched flywheels हैं, but that genuinely is a flywheel कि आप एक शख्स को कह रहे हैं कि क्योंकि हमने Pandamart किया और अब हमारे पास जो है वॉल्यूम सिनर्जीज आ रही हैं, and it's beautiful because our B2B is different from the B2B that exists in Pakistan. We're not going into the wholesale market. हम GTs के पास, किरियाने के पास नहीं जा रहे हैं. हम उन्हीं 25,000 रेस्टोरेंट्स को पहले फोकस कर रहे हैं जो हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पर हैं. So there is perfect complementarity. और उस complementarity के नतीजे में आपका प्लेटफॉर्म अफोर्डेबल है, आपका वेंडर ज़्यादा खुश है पहले के मुकाबले में कि यार ज़बरदस्त, यानी कि यू आर रियली हेल्पिंग मी आउट विद माई प्रोक्योरमेंट, जो कि पहले मुझे प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था. सो ये कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो हमने शुरू की जो उनके लिए था कि यार दिस इज़ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. आई ऑब्वियसली आई कैन नॉट थ्रो अ लॉट ऑफ नंबर्स, बट व्हाट आई कैन टेल यू इज़ दैट for most things within Asia, if I talk about foodpanda's operation in 11 countries within APAC, Pandamart Pakistan, like the quick commerce arm, is either 1 or 2 out of 3 instances within Asia. So this is how big, mashallah, it has become. That's why I said that adoption has been unnaturally different. And you would be surprised that this has translated not just to units sold, this has translated not just to transactions or customers, but actual GMV, play as well in terms of what is your clout. And we strongly feel that some of that strength of CPG relationships is something that now we are extending onto other markets. कि यार हमारे बड़े ज़बरदस्त relationships हैं. Let us help you, break into some of those players where they might not have been interested previously earlier on because maybe उस वक्त आपके volumes छोटे थे. But let us talk to the regional team XYZ. So that's one. Another part of the Idea Lab has been exports. What do you do when pushed in a corner? What do you do genuinely for your own business? And then we said, there are a few things that we have learned and that we are going to do as a way for business, and also because it's good for Pakistan. And then hopefully there could be some benefit from an advocacy perspective for foodpanda as well. कि यार हमारे पास कुछ चीज़ें हैं जो कि कहीं नहीं हैं और जिस कॉस्ट पे हम आपको दे सकते हैं, जिस क्वालिटी की हम दे सकते हैं, हमें ये करना चाहिए. सो इट वाज परहैप्स ओनली अ फ्यू वीक्स बैक वी स्टार्टेड हैविंग दिस कॉन्वर्सेशंस कि वी विल प्रोबेबली, बिकॉज वी आर नॉट अ डीप सी पोर्ट, तो हम आपको कुछ नगेट्स देते हैं. रियली थिंक थ्रू देम. यू शुड लुक एट द पोटेंशियल्स फॉर ट्रेडिंग हब्स in Dubai and potentially Singapore later on, because what we can then do is do proper cross-border. So we kick-started a project. They saw the weight and then they said, okay, interesting. So now we do it for a few categories because we will see that few categories coming out of Pakistan, but then there are a few other categories in X country and then in Y country, and then
okay. So just to contextualize that, because Delivery Hero has such a huge footprint. What you're saying is you begin to optimize operations on a multinational level. Correct. And you begin to say, listen, you're delivering kinnu in that market at this rate when it's so cheap in my country. Yes. Why don't I manage कि मैं आपके वो जो आपका warehouse है वहाँ पर आप जिस बंदे से procure करते हैं, I'll deliver that to you. Yeah. And then you can deliver that to the consumer and buy. Oh, interesting.
So बहुत सारे लोग नहीं जानते कि क्योंकि डिलीवरी हीरो इटसेल्फ कोई ब्रांड नहीं है. फूड पांडा उसका APAC ब्रांड है. और आप दुबई की बात कर रहे थे तो तलबात इज अ सिस्टर कंपनी.
Right.
हंगर स्टेशन इज अ सिस्टर कंपनी इन सऊदी अरेबिया.
So that way you then become globally integrated into that economy as well in a lot of ways, and because there's grocery and then there's food and there's this and there's that, and then through that you can interesting.
And you can do it for their marts first, and then you can say कि यार हम तो B2B कर रहे हैं तो आप भी तो अपने रेस्टोरेंट्स को बोले उनको भी तो आलू चाहिए, उनको भी तो potentially chicken चाहिए. So let's talk, but then let's do it in a mutually, in a proper symbiotic way. So maybe selectively right now our channels are not as sorted on imported products. तो हम आपके थ्रू वो एक्सप्लोर करना चाहते हैं. There are certain amazing brands of European chocolates, sparkling water, many other categories. और वो हम आपके देख सकते हैं. Obviously not now, but when the situation kind of improves, but there is genuine need for that. And we try to do it लेकिन हम उस तरीके से शायद एग्जीक्यूट नहीं कर पाते. बट इफ़ वी डिड इट वाया यू, सो नाउ दिस इज जेन्युइन क्रॉस बॉर्डर. So the trading hub potential has kind of been, has stemmed out of that ideal app stemming out of Pakistan in a sense. Pretty happy and proud about it.
Right. Conversation थोड़ी लंबी हो रही है, so I'm just going to wrap it up. मैं एक elephant in the room के बारे में बात करना चाहूँगा. आजकल बहुत सोशल मीडिया पे भी होता है, वो होता है राइडर्स का बहुत ज़्यादा कहा जाता है कि यार उन लोगों का the pay isn't enough or the model isn't very people friendly. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I disagree with the opinion, but also I feel that it's not my place to talk about it. I think our Director of Operations and Logistics, Farhan, would be the best suited to answer that.
वो देखते हैं सारे राइडर्स को?
Correct.
वो सारा?
Yeah.
अच्छा, इंटरेस्टिंग. क्योंकि मेरे 2-3 और सवाल भी थे राइडर्स रिलेटेड, कंसिडरिंग के अगेन वो इकोनॉमी भी प्ले इन कर रही है. जो फाइनेंशियल मॉडल है उसके अंदर द कोर कॉस्ट एसेंशियली हेयर इज द कॉस्ट ऑफ डिलीवरी. तो उसके अंदर then maybe we'll just have that conversation with him. Guys, I'm gonna ask you one last question. I ask all of my guests and I want your opinion on that. Again, considering कि आजकल हालात थोड़े up and down है, तो एक negative opinion है. So I want you to disconnect yourself from the current environment, the blip in history जो मैं that I call it. होता है downward spiral आता है, but things get better as well. Ibad, you've been in so many different countries. Europe आपने देखा, आपने अफ्रीका देखा, मिडल ईस्ट में तो आप रहे हैं. And then you've also been in Bangladesh, बड़ा आपने उसको बड़ा क्लोजली देखा और उनकी एक हमसे तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह वो बहुत बेहतर ही जा रहे हैं. तो उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, knowing what you know now, seeing what you've seen, if I were to ask you, how do you see Pakistan 27 years from now? What would your opinion be? If we can start with you.
27 years from now.
In 2050, what's the 2050 ka Pakistan like in your opinion?
The tech landscape has made us not devise strategies that forward-looking as other companies. यार मैं ये ज़रूर समझता हूँ कि there are few things that naturally go in your favor. Demographics is one of it. Not just population size, but age. Youth really matters. And I also feel that if you really look at it, that also means a lot of other things in terms of healthcare not becoming a burden and so on and so forth. I think the amount of people I've met outside and their perception of Pakistanis is that they are some of the smartest people in the world that they have worked with. I think we just need to come across and become a team. Sometimes we have this tendency of being that individual contributor shining bright a little too much, and I think that if we really understand कि यार we really need to rally around each other, चाहे यहाँ रह रहे हैं या चाहे बाहर रह रहे हैं. बाहर रहने में बुराई नहीं है मेरे ख्याल में. Obviously it's better to fight from the inside, but if the system is becoming a little difficult, then maybe there are some fights that you can better fight from the outside.
Yeah.
So but contribute.
Yeah,
I think remain connected to your roots. And with that support, and we see that reflected in the charity of the country,
in the remittance of the country,
in the remittances of the country. Probably that has played a bigger role, and we would have been in a lot of trouble otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think that in the grand scheme of things, I see people in our region, in our country, playing some massive role in how things evolve, and it's just those numbers again. Those numbers mean that you stand for something, and you will always be taken seriously, and that means that not only will people find ways and means to support each other, hopefully, but also that whatever the power structure of the world is, bipolar, tripolar, multipolar, doesn't matter. Everyone will know that Pakistan is an important player just because of where we are situated.
Right.
And they will do whatever it takes to make sure that there is stability here. Because that's in everybody's interest. So I think that forget the blip, things will be good.
Go for the long haul.
Go for the long haul, and 27 years out, I think we would have sorted ourselves out. Again, 75 years is not that long of a history.
Right, makes sense. Maz, what do you think?
So I think adding to what Ibad said, अगर मैं पाकिस्तान को देखता हूँ, I think not being very patriotic, but generally, I think the resources that we are blessed with, apart from the demographic scenarios, the youth and everything, I think this country has, even today with all the negativity and everything, I think this country has huge potential. And when we when we talk to people across different countries and everything, it's Pakistan को लेके in general sense एक अच्छी discussion होती है. The people, the sort of the thought process that generally the people have, the smartness that mashallah people convey their work with. I think in the short run, yes, there would be course corrections. There would be corrections happening. It's going to be painful. I mean, if someone feels that something's gonna come in and like कोई अलादीन का चिराग या कोई ऐसी कोई चीज़ होने वाली है, unfortunately that's not the
कोई
case.
मैजिक नहीं होने वाला. हाँ.
Correct. There is going to be course correction. I think we all are going to be part of that correction. But I think with sincerity, even if from today, if we start working in that right direction, I think by 2050, I think Pakistan could be in a very different landscape from where it is today.
Do you think there is a certain level of inevitability in the course correction now?
I mean, the course correction hona hai. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'm not an economist per se, but course correction hona hai because आप एक चीज़ को एक point तक drag कर सकते हैं. You can kick a can down the road for a particular time, and then eventually, you will face reality. And eventually, I think we will also be facing it. But then, वही वाली चीज़ है कि it's important that with sort of everyone coming together, we need to figure ourselves out of it. We need to come out of it as well, and then look at the broader picture, right? मतलब I mean, this is something that I see in general within my circle as well. सब बाहर जाना चाह रहे हैं, they're trying to move out, but 220 million लोगों को कोई बाहर नहीं accommodate करेगा, right? And this is your country. You need to fix it. I think that's where sort of we all need to come in together and sort of do that course correction.
Makes sense. Guys, thank you so much for coming in and sharing all that insight. I hope that the troubling economy is not too much of a trouble for you guys. It's exciting what you've created. Personally, I'm a huge supporter of the cause by proxy of me ordering a bunch of stuff every single day. But, I'm glad you've done what you've done and created a world-class product and ran it in Pakistan. I hope कि इंशाल्लाह आगे भी growth आपको मिले.
Inshallah.
And for all of you guys, thank you so much for watching. अगर आपको एपिसोड पसंद आई और अपने दोस्तों के साथ जरूर शेयर करिएगा. नीचे कमेंट सेक्शन में आके बताएं, do you use foodpanda? If not, why not? If you do, how do you like it and how do you think it can be improved? इसी के साथ साथ मुझे बताएं कि what are your thoughts on the startup ecosystem in the industry now that globally हालात थोड़े different हैं और इकोनॉमी के पाकिस्तान में हालात ऐसे हैं कि आपको लगता है कि ये छोटा सा मसला इवेंचुअली इसमें ग्रोथ आएगी या जो भी ओपिनियन है, let me know in the comment section below. इसी के साथ साथ YouTube वाले बरहे करम सब्सक्राइब कर लें. 70% of you do not subscribe to the channel. Just algorithm shows you the videos and you watch them. सब्सक्राइब कर लेंगे तो हमारा नंबर बढ़ेगा, अच्छा लगेगा. और अगर आप लाइक करेंगे इस वीडियो को तो ज़्यादा लोगों तक हमारी कन्वर्सेशन पहुँचेगी. So would urge you to like that as well. ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म वाले सब्सक्राइब का बटन दबाएंगे तो आने वाले एपिसोड्स की आपको नोटिफिकेशन मिलेगी. इसी के साथ साथ हमने डिस्कॉर्ड पे अपनी कम्युनिटी लॉन्च की है जहाँ पर हम we're creating leaders from Pakistan who are connected to the global economy and are now tying their income to the dollar, whether that means you're able to find opportunities abroad. Okay, I'm a huge proponent of sending as many people as possible to outside of Pakistan as long as they're connected to Pakistan. But इसी के साथ साथ बहुत सारी इंडस्ट्रीज पाकिस्तान में राइज करेंगी in the coming months and years जो कि dollar based होंगी and outward focused होंगी rather than inward focused. And we're sharing a lot of insight there. We're connecting people who are focused on the same mission. You can join that community if you're interested. इसी के साथ साथ this was Syed Muzamil. You were watching Thought Behind Things. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.